Alright, ito na. Recording. Well, I'm just waiting for, some something na so yeah, here it is. We missed out a lot sa gusto nating i-discuss, which is ito nga, the 2024 elections ng US na it's gonna coincide with the pagdating ng same year nitong year din na to is few months before, hindi, full year pa bago yung midterms dito sa Pinas. But of course, I wanna talk about this muna since ito yung mas malapit na discussion natin. So, here it is. Like, a lot of things has been missed out sa atin. Lalo rin kay Ethan kasi di rin man nakapag-record. Sobrang busy sobrang busy din sa school. So, yeah. Wait, sige, ito lang munang Let's see what the other Ethan has to say about this sa prediction niya about the GQP primary or the presidential.
Welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2023, and in just 2 weeks, the Iowa caucuses are set to occur, which means
Yep.
it's time for a 2024 Republican primary election prediction. Before I get into my prediction, I want to do a huge shout out to the Discord server that has been running for quite some time now since the 2020 election. You can join it at discord.gg/LTE, and it is the #1 place for news and elections. And they actually have a brand new bot that I'm super excited about that actually.
Yeah.
And so,
we got
to preface, we are going to be starting with a lot of the early states and spending a lot of time talking about that simply because after around a point at the end of South Carolina and Nevada, we probably won't be hearing much from the candidates Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, and potentially Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis further out from that. And the reason for that is because these early primary states are often indicators about the longevity of elections and how they can be ran by individual candidates and how long these candidates can run, can stay in the running, whatever you want to say, how long they are relevant, essentially speaking. And so when states like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada sort of come to fruition and you see the results poured out and displayed on a national screen, not only do these candidates internally know that they are either done for or have a realistic shot at the nomination, it also tells the public and who they should support, which means momentum gets built. If people see their candidate tank in a GOP primary, they probably aren't going to be backing them in the next primary because they know that it doesn't make sense for that to happen because you're not going to back somebody who will have no impact on the general election platform, no impact at the convention, and no impact or chance at actually winning the nomination. What I will say, though, is that there are candidates uniquely to this race that are very much vehemently opposed to Donald Trump. People like Chris Christie, who arguably based on his national numbers, where he's polling presently speaking at just around 4% nationwide, should have dropped out weeks, if not months ago, but refuses to do so because of their strong dislike for Donald Trump. It will get to a point, though, that in the primary process, candidates will remove themselves out of the race, not because they personally want to stop running, but because there is no backing for them. Their staff leaves, their advisors leave, their donors leave, and everybody vacates the campaign. And so
and I bet Vivek is the first one who might drop out. Honestly speaking, like Vivek is gonna be the first one who drops out. Then I think he might survive Iowa and New Hampshire, but I don't think he's gonna survive Nevada and South Carolina. I think he's gonna go
Ako,
down. Oh, sige, go ahead.
ako actually, wait lang. Ako
Okay.
actually, sa tingin ko, may mga Republican candidates talaga like Lisa Hutchinson, Chris Christie na nag-stay talaga sa race because dislike talaga nila si Trump. So, kahit wala talaga silang chances within the polls, if titignan talaga natin ang polls, halos wala talaga silang chance and yet they still stay in the race just because dislike nila si Trump. And which is also a good sign kasi noong 2020, tatatlo lang ang tumakbo sa Republican primary, di ba? Si Trump, si former Governor Bill Weld, and former Congressman, I forgot the name.
Joe
Tatatlo lang
Walsh.
sila. Ayan, si Joe Walsh. Ngayon, with Chris Christie, isa Hutchinson, I think pa sa mapakita yung other side ng Republican Party na mayroon pa rin may mga ayaw na kay Trump.
Yeah, but my argument for that is it's too narrow. There's a narrow percent of anti-Trumps and they're scrambling. They're scrambling for the they're scrambling for the position to see how much of a force they can be, just like in 2016. Now for me it's kind of futile since yun na nga, malakas na talaga sa primary si former president, but in the general we still don't know. And I still don't really believe the polls that he's up by 5 to 6 points to the battleground states. So that's why I still think na President Biden might win again, but in the narrowest of margins in the electoral college vote. In popular vote, I'm not saying that he would win comfortably, but I think he might win by 4 million, 4 million popular votes. That's what I think in the general election. So yeah, we can continue this.
So they have to as well. And so, with all of that being said, we are again going to be talking about these early primary states pretty intensely, getting all the way up through Super Tuesday, and then from then talking about the implications of it and what will be the future. So, to begin, in around 13, 14 days, Iowa's caucuses results will be tabulated and published, hopefully speaking a lot better than they were back in 2020, that will tell us the beginning of this ever evolving story since the 2020 election when Donald Trump lost re election. And so, to begin, we are going to talk about the state of Iowa. Like I said, this is a state where Donald Trump actually has been polling quite well in, but not as well as he is nationwide, which is a little bit interesting that some of these early primary states are not as strong for former President Trump. Now, I will not be using the polling averages for every single state. I promise you that's not going to happen, and I'm not going to bore you by doing that. I have all these numbers compiled. I don't know if you can hear my note pages here, but I've pretty much written out exactly how all of the states are going to go and what my predictions are and the type of allocation that the states are going to go by because that matters in these states. Because in one case, back in 2016, I talked about this in my earlier video today, Donald Trump won just 30% of the vote in South Carolina, got 100% of the delegates because the votes were split. So that's just something we're going to keep in mind, something we think about when we move forward in some of these states. But right now, Iowa is a state where Donald Trump is on track to get roughly 55% of the vote, considering that there's very few undecided voters, but I expect between now and 2 weeks from now, the numbers to slightly improve. And so that brings Donald Trump to around 55% of the delegate count because Iowa is a proportional state. First in the nation, it should be that way, in my personal opinion. Nikki Haley's coming in round second place, round third place. Ron DeSantis slated to
He
do
agrees
slightly
with
better.
me.
He will probably get around 20% of the vote. Nikki Haley around 18% of the vote. Vivek Ramaswamy is still in the running in this state, expected to get roughly 5% of the vote. And Chris Christie probably going to do worse than Vivek Ramaswamy. And so, off the initial bat here, Donald Trump takes a strong lead with 22 delegates. Nikki Haley's at 7, DeSantis is at 8, Ramaswamy's at 2, Christie is at 1. And thus, the story begins. We move over to the state of New Hampshire, where surprisingly enough, Nikki Haley has been doing a lot better than all
I mean, that would be sad if Governor Christie gets less delegate votes and less, primary votes in the sa Iowa. And then but then former Governor Haley getting, might get second place next week. Then my assumptions can be correct that, she can take Iowa as second place if she can if she can reduce the pledged delegates by to the former president. I think.
than all of the remaining candidates besides Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump starts off strong with roughly 44% of the vote, but that's actually one of his weakest states early on. It is another state that is proportional, and it absolutely matters for the outcome of this election. And Nikki Haley, on the contrary, is doing much better than she is in other states. She gets roughly 30% of the vote based on where she is right now. Ron DeSantis gets around 9% of the vote, but probably will do around 13%. And with this remaining allocation, Ron DeSantis is at 9%. Chris Christie actually is the one who is doing better than Ron DeSantis, getting around 13.64% of polling and probably, of course, eventually the vote. Ramaswamy is not doing well at all in this state. He's polling in a pretty poor place. He's around 6%, but of course, as the delegate count gets slashed and it gets distributed, he probably won't be getting that amount when it comes down to the actual election.
Wait,
But where
Ethan, do you think Trump would the former president would also get New Hampshire after the Iowa caucus?
Actually, if titignan natin siya, it is still possible. Kasi though, for me, may effect yung naging endorsement ni Governor Christian Nunu kay former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. May momentum pa rin, mas malaki pa rin yung momentum ni former President Donald Trump when it comes talaga dun sa early states. Yun talagang nasa tingin ko. Kaya I don't think talaga na nagkakaroon or magkakaroon ng effect yung mga endorsements on those states to other presidential candidates than Trump kasi kahit before that endorsements, nangunguna pa rin si Trump. And now, may endorsement na ng mga state officials from that state na iba ang ini-endorse nila, still, former President Trump is leading the race. So I still think it's
So it's
possible na makuha ni Trump yung early states.
so it's futile nonetheless. Yeah. All right, that's fair.
But where we are right now, Trump at 45%, Haley at 31, 32%, Ron DeSantis at 9, Christie at 13.64. So again, the map shaping up to be a race for second place. Haley and DeSantis 14 to 10, Christie at 4, Ramaswamy at 2, and Donald Trump in the lead with a whopping 32 delegates. Moving over, this is February now, so the January primaries and caucuses are out of the way. Iowa happened, New Hampshire happened. Now we're into February. February 8th is when Nevada and the Virgin Islands happen. So the Virgin Islands, I'll start off with, not that many delegates here, around 9. They're allocated on a similar way as the rest of the country, and you will see here that Donald Trump is going to do quite well. He did very well here in years past, and you see that he's going to get around 77% of the vote. DeSantis and Haley will probably split individual delegates from the remaining voting pool here, which will bring Donald Trump up to 39 and them up marginally. But the big one is the state of Nevada. Now, the reason why this matters is because in an early primary state or an early caucus state, it's a bit of a point of contention here, which I will get to in just a moment. It's important for everybody to be on the ballot everywhere. You would think all these candidates have been at numerous primary debates, they've been at numerous states in Iowa and New Hampshire, and they are focusing heavily on it. But Nikki Haley made a mistake. Her campaign registered for Nevada's primary. Now, you might be thinking, what's wrong with that? Well, the state legislature, which is controlled heavily by Democrats, it's a very gerrymandered state. Democrats have an overwhelming majority there, and so they passed a law that requires primaries to be occurred, to primaries to be held, not caucuses. And so the problem that the RNC has with that is that they say, no, we want to do things our way. But Nevada has a law that requires a primary. So the Nevada GOP made a decision. They will host a caucus 2 days later rather than a primary. And the
Oh
primary
my
will be
god.
non binding, and anyone who registers for it cannot compete also in the caucus, sort of as a display of showing the national party and the state legislature, hey, we don't agree with this decision. This will have no impact on our primary. You're wasting tax dollars by hosting it, and you're confusing voters along the same lines. And so Nevada now has a three-way race, four-way race between Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, Donald Trump, and Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley is nowhere to be seen on that ballot because she is being taken off. In fact, it isn't a ballot, it's a caucus, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so Donald Trump
All
will
right,
get a
no,
whopping
that's not
and is
fair.
expected to do so based off current
Not the
polling data.
Demo,
But I am
not the
bumping up his numbers
Democratic
because,
Party.
again, a lot of Haley supporters also are very much Trump supporters in their second or third choice. He's going to get around 75% of that vote. And Nevada, as a state where this does have an impact, it is technically speaking proportional, but a huge benefit to Donald Trump. He gets 76% of the vote. Ron DeSantis will probably get the remaining 18, 19%. And then maybe you will see Chris Christie with the remaining 4%. Vivek Ramaswamy in this state does not seem to be polling in anywhere close to relevancy. And so, thus, Donald Trump wins the state by a whopping margin because Nikki Haley simply is not on the ballot. And so you move over next to the state of South Carolina, where Nikki Haley is probably going to capture back some of those delegates that DeSantis is already taking them out over her. But you see here that Donald Trump, again, is taking this race away. South Carolina is a state where you're going to have Nikki Haley do well simply because she was the former governor.
Oh shit.
Not too well.
Fill up.
Donald Trump's on track to get
I think it fell
44
like
of the
time.
delegates here. Nikki Haley will probably get around 6. You might be thinking, okay, how's that possible? He's getting 88% of the vote? No. It's a state that does a winner take all primary, but it's winner take most, meaning he wins the statewide vote, wins all of those delegates, but they are broken down by congressional district. I think Nikki Haley, because she has the former governor status and has a well known rep across the state and has been polling quite well, can reasonably get a good chunk of support across 2 congressional districts, enough to potentially win over those delegates. But there's
I
even a
think
situation where she wins 0 of
2 districts. I think I bet na she would win the sixth district of Clyburn and the first district of Representative Mace. Yeah, I think that's the only the federal districts that she will win in the primary.
and 0 of them, and Trump wins 50. Right now, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that South Carolina, in some parts of the state, some parts of the region, are beneficial for Nikki Haley, giving her 6 delegates out of the state's total 50. But now Donald Trump is already at triple digits. Everybody else is starting to fade off. And around this point is when I would say Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy are no longer in the race. They no longer matter, and they no longer are going to be on the primary in the same way they were before. I think this is the point where you really start to see these campaigns have their own staffers, advisors, and donors abandon them because they simply don't see a pathway forward. Mathematically speaking, logistically speaking, whatever it might be, they are out of the race. And so we take Ramaswamy, Christie, take them out. Their delegates don't get reallocated, but you have a remaining toss-up column here, not toss-up column, remaining number of states that need to hold primaries. They will still be on the ballot, by the way, but they probably won't have any voters. Maybe a few people will still do sort of like a protest vote for them, but again, they aren't going to have much of an impact. So we move directly into March. Everything's over. We move to Idaho and Missouri. Washington, D.C. has sort of like a 3-day primary. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but they are going to host a primary in which Donald Trump is likely to win every single one of these states. And the reason for that is because the Republican primary has a lot of states that are winner take most. And what winner take most means is that it isn't an absolute, like South Carolina, where you have, a lot of the vote going in one way. It is going to be very similar to that, but they allow for individual delegations to make a decision about how the remainder of the vote is counted. But if there is a situation in which one candidate is getting the majority of the vote in some states or winning the majority of the vote in congressional districts, they win all of those districts' delegates as well, which would mean
Well,
in states like Idaho, where you aren't going to see governor, home state advantage, any type of influence in certain pockets of the state for either side, Haley or DeSantis, Donald Trump really does well because winning the outright majority in any of those districts allows him to build up this overall advantage that allows him to win in a winner take most states. So essentially, the way it works is they have a statewide primary, of course,
damn it.
they have statewide delegates, then they have district delegates or whatever they want to decide is determining delegates. Maybe it's state senate districts, state house districts, sometimes congressional districts. You get the gist. They do things their way. The Republican primary decides, and each state is a little bit different. But winner take most roughly has the same thing. The statewide delegates go one way. It's a winner take all system for whoever wins the majority there. But if certain candidates, for example, if Nikki Haley was to win Idaho's first district and get a majority there, but lost the statewide popular vote, she would still get some delegates from the first district. But that's not going to be the case. I'm sorry if that was confusing. I don't explain things super well, not all the time at least. So Idaho, I will say Donald Trump is likely to win all those delegates because of the winner take most system. He's also going to win Missouri. I don't think you're really going to see too much hope here for Ron DeSantis. In previous polling, though, which is interesting, back earlier on this year, he was doing quite well there. He's not doing
Oh
quite
my
well there
gosh.
now. He's roughly around 13% of the vote, so not expecting much for him. DC overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, as it was in previous elections. So now we get to a point where it's Super Tuesday. A very important, number of races, ones that will likely fill in a lot of this map and will be very, very important. Similar to some of the states that have already been decided, a lot of them are winner take most. Some of them are proportional, so we'll work with those as we will. But a lot of them are going to be decided simply based off who's winning the majority of the vote. If they're winning the majority of the vote statewide, they win
Yeah,
all of the delegates. And
I
again,
might agree na this would na the last person's standing in the primary would be, yeah, the former Governor Haley, Governor the Fascist, and the former president. But between the two governors, I don't know who's gonna last long. But I still believe Governor Haley might last until the convention roll call, but we'll never know. Because I don't think Governor DeSantis can recover on this one. Like, yung ano kasi nga the way he governs and translating it into his campaign, it strictly had backfired on his ass. Like, di ba? Like the strict abortion bans, the attack on Disney and gay rights that the Republicans should not really lash out on because it's a losing strategy for them. But then that's on them. That's on him, obviously. So I don't. So that's why uh the former president or Governor Haley has parang maganda yung imaging nila to themselves that, oh, we're less extremist than him, which is, he might not, the governor might not accept that rhetoric, but that's the case for now. Na, yun nga, like uh he's not a centrist. He's a far right Republican, more rightist than the former president. But yeah, that's it.
And again, some deal with congressional districts and a breakdown that way. But for most of them, it's just whether or not someone wins a majority. And if they don't, then it becomes proportional. But because Donald Trump is doing quite well nationally and would be, in fact, riding high based on where the numbers are currently, because he's already doing well, but can you imagine him with this huge delegate advantage? He'd be coming in with a huge mandate and momentum that would allow him to win a lot of these remaining states by larger margins, especially states where he was already expected to do quite well. So states like Alabama, Donald Trump wins. He wins states like Arkansas by an overwhelming amount. Let's go ahead and just move to the fill tool here so we aren't wasting time. He also wins California, a huge, huge prize that brings him to 466 delegates. California matters a lot. It is a winner take most system. Donald Trump is undoubtedly going to get the majority there. He's already polling at 60, 70%. Donald Trump's on track to win in the state of Maine, win in the state of Massachusetts, win in the state of Minnesota, in the state of Oklahoma. Despite, what you find here, Ron DeSantis has received a lot of endorsements in Oklahoma, a lot of endorsements, including the governor, Kevin Stitt, in Oklahoma. Guess what? Ron DeSantis is polling around 12% in that state. So clearly, endorsements don't matter as much as we think they do. Oklahoma goes towards Donald Trump in the blue column, which is interesting to say. Tennessee all goes to Trump. Texas, a state that Ted Cruz couldn't crack 50% back in 2016.
I mean, all right, this makes me laugh about, how dominant the former president it is. Like yung na-project namin ni Sir Kurt, but then we still given some of these candidates the states na, they might pick off against the former president, but in a plurality situation, though it doesn't really gonna matter because, the former president will still win the nomination this year. Oh, my- I-
In 2016, couldn't make it a winner take all state. Donald Trump does just that. That gets him to 828 delegates. And then we have the remaining states, the ones that I haven't characterized that are on Super Tuesday.
no, kasi to be fair, if you pick off against the former president, yung mga states na might favor you in a way, like it's gonna help you a bit in the primaries. Well, I mean, in the, some mga reddest states when it comes to the Republican presidential primaries, like ano ba, like I said, yung sa Idaho, like Governor DeSantis might get Idaho, but I don't Idaho, but yeah. Well, if he gets Idaho and gets his home state, he can have a fighting chance. And if he can get Wisconsin on this primary, he'll get a chance. Same goes with with the former governor. Like if he gets her home state of South Carolina, he gets the North Carolina, he gets Georgia. Theoretically speaking, if she gets those states na yon, that is those neighboring states of her home state, she might get a chance. She might have a fighting chance. Bet she might have a better fighting chance than the governor against the former president.
Tuesday that are not winner take most, that are in some cases proportional or do have a little bit of a delegate situation. For example, American Samoa does an entire delegation that chooses individually who they're going to vote for, but all of them are expected to go to Donald Trump. And so for the remaining states, we have Alaska, we have Colorado, we have North Carolina, we have Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. They're either proportional or have a different type of primary system that allows for the winner take most situation to not get into effect. Or maybe they have it, but the candidates aren't expected to get a winner take most scenario to benefit them too heavily. Candidates like Donald Trump, who aren't doing too well in some states while doing very well in others. And so we'll start off with the state of Alaska, where you have Donald Trump getting roughly 45% of the vote here. Reminder that he lost this state to Ted Cruz back in 2016. Nikki Haley will probably come in second place. across the state, and Ron DeSantis coming in a close third. But of course, Donald Trump still is able to win the majority of the districts here, win the majority, sorry, of the votes in this state. Not majority, plurality is the word I was looking for. That brings him to 13 delegates across.
The former president winning Alaska in the primaries, like, what do you think about, ano yung thoughts niyo dun? Like, it is possible, it's possible, but there might be some competition. So I'm getting hopes up that there might be some competition. So I mean, yeah, what do you think about what do you think about that thoughts ka na Alaska might be competitive in the primaries?
Ako, eto na lang. Well, if we look at the picture talaga ng 2024, hindi effective yung mga paninira kay former President Donald Trump. Yun lang masasabi ko. When it comes to his opponents, hindi effective yung mga paninirang ginawa nila or ginagawa nila right now.
Hmm, futile na rin talaga, eh. Siguro if he loses this year, I think he can be vulnerable in 2028 if he wants to go for another run. But I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. Nah, he'll be weak in the primaries. So yeah, it's a stretch. It's too stretched for, to be honest, that he would be politically weak.
Kasi eto ha, when it comes kasi kung maganda yung naging start ng campaign, actually yun din napansin ko no, kasi nung 2022 midterms, yun talaga yung election ng Amerika na sinasihan ko from day one up to the last. Ang lumalabas na pinaka-malaking or pinaka-possible biggest opponent of former President Donald Trump is Governor Ron DeSantis. Kasi di ba, malaki yung naging agwat niya against kay former Governor Charlie Crist.
Charlie
Well,
Crist.
I'm expecting
Yeah.
naman that. Pero,
Yeah, I'll just wait about that. Naalala ko yung sinabi mo, sir, about kay Governor De Fascist playing
Uh,
in the middle,
yeah,
which
yeah. Just to add something. Um, Remember, this is still early in the race, so we cannot really determine how much the percentages would be for every candidate, since Iowa is a state that is measured based on the ground strength of the candidate, and compared with the Democratic primaries 4 years ago, um, the willingness of the candidates to compete in Iowa is actually getting thinner and thinner, which is kind of surprising since uh, any contending candidate can actually make a statement in Iowa. So if we are to trim down the candidates for the presidency in the season, Haley and DeSantis should be doing that right now in order to at least get a sufficient number of delegates to compete with the front runner, right? Which is Donald Trump.
hmm,
So
yep.
I think what Ethan of Let's Talk Elections is trying to say is that polling wise, Trump is very unbeatable by this moment because the polls haven't moved or the needles haven't moved, which means to say that there should be triple time or there should be double time for the candidates on the ground. So I guess I am pretty surprised that Iowa is not being in contention so far so good because this is the maker statement kind of caucus because once you deliver momentum to the next contest, which is the New Hampshire primaries, people or the voters there would notice you, and they might give you a winning chance, you know. But since the political climate has changed over the years, since this is my ninth election, I guess, that I've witnessed in
Yep,
both presidential and midterms. Okay, I'm not only saying presidential; it's combined. So
yep,
it's a very polarizing climate. So uh, if the candidates are not able to convince that they are more sufficient than Donald Trump, then people will just vote casually. So this is what we call in voter behavior as casual voting, wherein people would just vote for the most strongest candidate out there. Much like in gambling, you are playing safe with who you are gunning for, so that you won't risk a lot of money. So that is what they're going to do in New Hampshire if there's no clear messaging coming from the other contending candidates. So would there be a split, or would there be increase of percentages amongst anti-Trump candidates, much like Chris Christie? Probably, because New Hampshire does not vote Republican in the national level, and we have to also look
yep,
into the status of the primaries of New Hampshire. So New Hampshire is an open primary, so even independent voters can vote there, and they might lean towards giving their votes to a New Englander like Chris Christie. So moving
yeah,
to
I would
South,
agree.
moving to South Carolina, there is probably more partisan voting in the primaries there. So this is a make or break moment for Secretary or Ambassador Haley, because if she doesn't win this thing, it's over. We can likely see that Donald Trump would coast to victory if he wins Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Actually, to even enumerate all the states based on their calendar in the primaries would be um, a waste, okay, for of time, namely because in the early get-go of the primaries, um, the validity of the presumption of the front runner would be determined by how he or she will win the first three contests of the 2024 Republican primaries. This isn't the same compared to the 2016 primary, because during that time there was a lot of ground support for different candidates. So everything was considered to be a toss up. That's why Donald
On
Trump's
both
win
parties.
on both parties, yes.
Okay,
It was a
okay.
contentious. We cannot really compare era
Hindi kasi
by era. Mm-mm.
hindi kasi ano din kasi sir eh, open seat din yung White House at the time eh. So yeah, I
Yeah,
would agree na it
exactly.
was all
Yes.
all for ano, all for nothing.
Mm-mm. So, uh, 2020 was supposedly like, or is near to that competition, but we can see that Biden, or President Biden, won when he won South Carolina. All other
Yep.
moderate
He steamrolled.
candidates coalesced with him, including Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and si Beta. So, so this,
Tama
so,
na.
so that was a smart move, since you're consolidating all your machinery in the Super Tuesday states, something that the Sanders campaign failed to realize. So they weren't playing it dirty like they did in 2016, wherein Bernie Sanders almost won the nomination um, eight, tama ba? 8 years ago, yes. Mm-mm. So,
Yeah,
uh,
almost 8 years ago.
yeah. So remember, di ba, Sanders won Iowa that time because they played it well.
Su-
You know, they played dirty against Hillary, and
suppose well, supposed no 2016 okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
2020
Yeah,
was not
he did
the
win.
same. He did win early on. He won Iowa, New Hampshire he also won, and Nevada was also won by Bernie. So this
That was
particular,
crucial to them.
yeah. So had it not been Biden winning South Carolina and somebody else, let's say had Kamala stayed in the race, she would have won South Carolina. Biden would have needed to drop out by that time. So well, anyway, we're not going. I'm just comparing the trajectory of the primaries from 8 to 4 years ago. So I am seeing a different climate now since the Republican primaries, which is supposedly to be competitive, right, in any um, re-election bid from the opposition or so from the administration party, is actually not doing that, or it's not actually looking like it's competitive. So it's a make or break for Haley. If she wins South Carolina, she might become a dark horse. We are not sure. But polls suggest that, yeah, any dark horse candidate would need to translate their magic in the ground. And South Carolinians were fond of Donald Trump, and they also voted for, in the 2020 Senate elections, they still voted for
Yep.
one of the president's closest allies, which is doggone Lindsey fucking Graham. So that only goes to show that he is poised to win the three major contests. So my trajectory for this primary would be, if Trump wins all three, we're gonna see for the first time since Richard Nixon a person that would be nominated by the GOP for a third time. Okay, the last one to do it is Richard Nixon because he won the nomination in 1960 overwhelmingly, 1968. Okay, defeating um, Republicans from the left and Republicans from the right, and then his re-election bid in 1972. So um, that he was the last one, and Donald Trump, if he wins this one, would be the second or the first in 50 years, more than 50 years, to accomplish the feat. No, so
Mm.
if there's a surprise in Iowa, let's say, I'm just giving a scenario of what's gonna happen because we still don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay, polls can
Yep.
be deceiving sometimes. I'm just going to
Yep.
share it with our viewers. Iowa, if DeSantis wins this, he's not gonna focus on New Hampshire because the campaign would know he's not gonna sway over libertarian moderate voters. Okay,
Yep.
he's not gonna do that. So what he wants to do is to win a Super Tuesday, certain states in Super Tuesday. That would be the
Yeah.
next goal.
Kasi that would only be his trump card. One
Mhm.
of the states in Super Tuesday.
Correct. And we're only saying this if he wins Iowa. What if
Mm.
Trump wins Iowa and Haley wins New Hampshire? So that would give Haley some bit of a dark horse upper hand since South Carolina is her home state. Now, again, casual voting also happens whenever surprising if moments happen in the
Yep.
political climate. So, magkakaroon na tinatawag nating, anong tawag sa sports? Yung you're betting on the hottest team there is. Bandwagon
Yeah.
effect. So, when there would
Yes.
be a
Yeah.
bandwagon effect, if Haley wins New Hampshire, she might be making no no she might overturn the tables and win South Carolina. Now, what would happen next to her? She needs to finish strong in states that she can win, like Arizona, Nevada, all those states that have independent Republican voters who are not for Trump. So we're talking about the
Or more
country
like,
Republicans, or what Taylor Swift's
yeah,
call uh, that your
these
dad's
aren't
Republican Party.
Republicans.
Yeah, but that's just another, I don't know. That's just another scenario that we're just trying to make a picture of what can possibly happen. So we're not actually leaving. We're just making, I don't know. We're just making projections if the scenarios happen. So what if
Yep.
DeSantis wins Iowa and stuns Haley in South Carolina, but Trump wins New Hampshire. So what's gonna happen then? Trump would probably still win because in Super Tuesday, most independent voters would look into the local government experience of the governor, and he might win other states of the South, but the more liberal to moderate states would go to Trump, much like what happened in 2016 between Cruz and Trump. So if you remember, right? So Cruz was
Yeah.
what they call this Tea Party Republican, right? That was their clarion call in 2016. So he was winning those states that are more fiscally conservative, socially conservative, like Kansas, um, the second district of Maine, right? So Trump was winning the states that are more into swing state category at the time: Florida, Ohio, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado in 2016. So uh, he was not the most preferred candidate of these voters, but the policy orientation would force these, or press gang, actually that's more suitable for a term, to vote for the lesser of two evils. So that would happen if Trump wins New Hampshire, yet mag-upset si DeSantis sa Iowa and Florida. I mean, South Carolina. So it would be a big deal for DeSantis by that time, if this scenario happens, to win his home state, which is also the former president's home state. So we all know what's gonna happen next. So that would be
Oh, yeah.
that would
I
be
think
bad.
I think magiging madumi talaga sa Florida
Oh yeah.
primary, no
Kailan pa
doubt.
ba naging Kailan pa ba naging malinis ang halalan sa Florida? I mean, 2000, 2004, 2012. It's all going to be close.
2018.
Yeah, the midterms gubernatorial. And also the
No, and the
the
senatorial.
senatorial, yeah, between Scott and Nelson. So, uh, yun yung problema ngayon if that scenario ever push forward. But again, what if ganito naman? Haley wins Iowa, and then Trump wins her home state of South Carolina and New Hampshire. So it would still be a Trump victory because malaki kasi yung delegation impact ng New Hampshire primaries tsaka South Carolina. So this is not only limited to the Republican Party. This is also quite uh, evident with the Democratic Party, like in the case of Bill Clinton in 92 and Obama in 08, wherein both candidates won a serious primary, and that helped them boost their profile. In the Republican side, McCain in 2008 and Romney in 2012, because in 2012, if we remember quite fondly, Rick Perry and Santorum were poised to win South Carolina. Okay, and Romney actually won it, surprisingly. So, well, I mean, that was the polls that was suggesting that. But again, Romney won South Carolina, and that helped him get the nomination almost 12 years ago. Ay,
All
tama. Yeah, 12 years ago. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
2012.
Yeah, 12
Tagal
years
na.
ago. Mm.
So, yun lang yung mga yun lang binibigyan lang natin ng yan, ng significance kasi ako kasi as much as I appreciate LTE doing a state per state analysis on this, it's just going to be boring because we all know who the front runner is, and there's no way to debate it. I mean, you cannot talk gold when there's already a
Unless
silver lining.
unless may miracle talaga. No,
Let
unless may miracle talaga din.
that's
But yeah, that's
the one.
another thing. Mm.
And para kasing lumalabas dito, no? I'm just going to shift from technical analytical to more theoretical. Ang nangyayari kasi dito, Trump didn't win a second term straight, right? So it's
Mm.
only natural for a losing a one-term president to try another term. Okay, um, with the exceptions, of course, of unpopular incumbents like Carter and Bush 41, who still ran, diba? Uh, both of them still
Mm.
ran. Yet, of course, we all know that their popularity was slowly waning in the approval rating. So, um, lahat naman kasi ng natalo ng first term, ano 'yan,
They wanna
talaga
give another go.
yeah. So, people who are with their circle, their partisan circles, would overwhelmingly give that candidate a chance, and that's what's happening to Trump. No, despite the cases that's gonna happen, despite the
Yep.
indictments that were given, and even if they impeach or if they uh, file another charge against Trump, I think that would not really change. The thing is, of course, uh, in terms of the political situation or the legal situation of the United States, it's going to be dangerous if Trump ever gets elected again, because now you're seeing a
Yeah,
president that's threatening to dis to really malfunction
mantle the constitution.
the legal processes of the United States, which we herald as the most uh, robust democracy in the world, right? So uh, it's just there's a sign of discomfort as well if you look at the governance side of things, okay? Because
Yeah.
from the
Mm.
political standpoint of things, I could be okay with that because that normally happens when people don't approve of the president they have elected. So Biden is
Yep.
now not returning to his early levels of approval, which were high, by the
Yep.
way. So it's
Mm.
only normal in a political heuristic to say, na, yeah, he'll lose, to Donald Trump, who was the predecessor. Okay, so but in the governance side, we all know that there would be consequences, and
Yep.
the polarization that the Biden administration aimed to mitigate is not happening, or will just be thrown away. You know, and ano I can see a correlation with the inflation. I mean, to blame or to give that optics, okay, to blame President Biden upon the inflation that is happening in the United States is a very effective dirt against the administration, even if it's not going to be entirely their fault. Okay,
Yep.
technically, the Trump administration also had to do with the inflation rates that are causing high prices of goods right now. People won't see
And
that,
yung debt
correct?
and the debt,
The,
their national
no,
debt.
no, we're. I mean, I'm not. I don't. I'm trying my best not to sound elitist, but since we're the three of us are both learned in these conditions, we would think, okay, objectively upon those matters. But the common people don't do that. Okay, they don't. Let's admit let's just call a spade a spade. That since they don't bother to analyze things deeply, they would immediately blame the people in charge. So I guess it's an effective optic, and it's gonna carry through 2024 unless the Biden administration does a good campaign countering it. So it's hard
Mm.
to run as the incumbent if there are bad things that are happening around the country, regardless of what country it is. No, I mean, even in the Philippines, just to put it there, just to slide it there, if Bongbong Marcos does not solve the inflation problem, we're going to have a Senator Duterte at hand. No, well, of course, for those that are,
Or we're gonna have a coup d'etat.
I'm not going to say that. That's not. But anyway, let's stick to American politics, shall we? So, nasingit ko
Alright,
lang
so
kasi
yeah, yeah,
parang
pero about
parehas
naman dun
kasi
kay ano,
kay ano.
yung about President Trump, I think
Ah,
the saving grace here, I would say saving grace in a special term. Like the saving grace for America's republic, Democratic Republic, is either former President Trump loses the general by a
mm,
slim margin in popular and electoral college votes, or one of the uh, crime cases filed against him gets to be a guilty verdict.
mm,
And we don't know how he would we don't know how he would do
uh,
if if he ever be imprisoned. Like,
yeah.
would his
Uh,
campaign still be they
uh,
cannot use the can they use the 25th? No, no, I mean the 14th amendment. Yes, I think they can use the 14th amendment. Well, Colorado did use the 14th amendment basis to
but
disqualify him on the
wait,
primary
wait.
ballot.
But they returned him in the ballot because voters, or no, it's the RNC that complained that why they took away Donald Trump's name in the Colorado ballot. And it won't make it doesn't matter actually if they remove um if they remove Donald Trump from the Colorado ballot, doesn't matter because the three contests are going to be the build up eh. Kaya nga sabi ko sa Tagalog, no, kung manalo na si Trump sa tatlong 'yan, tapos na ang boxing. Kumbaga, sabi nga ni Tony Gonzaga, may nanalo na! 'Di ba? Hindi kasi nga, I mean,
Yeah,
if this
I mean,
was
I would
if
agree. I
ma-
would agree.
if may formidable opponent, hindi ko pwedeng sabihin kahit manalo si Trump sa tatlong 'yon tapos na kasi may Super Tuesday pa. Pero wala eh, wala namang
Oo.
formidable candidate. Kasi yung isa himod, yung isa syempre 'pag galit na galit ka sa dating presidente, hindi naman gusto ng base 'yon. Yung isa naman playing
Eh,
safe.
kinampihan mo din naman.
Oo, 'di ba? So, I mean, the strategy
Kinam
did not work. I mean, honestly, 'di ba? So, it's not the climate is not favoring the opponent. So, ang testingin mo na lang
do you
diyan,
think
yes.
hindi, eto lang saglit lang na question pa. Do you think former Governor Christie, if he drops out
Mm.
after either the first three contests or the Super Tuesday, would he vote for President Biden?
Of
For I
course
don't
he would.
for me,
I think he
probably.
would. He would. He would. I mean, inaasar nga siya ng mga Republicans, di ba, na you gave Obama a big hug, right? Because they're trying to portray Christie as a rhino or a Republican in name
Yeah.
only candidate.
Yep.
Although in the history of the Republican Party, they have been traditionally strong in New England. Kaya nga may sununo, kaya may Phil Scott, kaya nagkaroon ng Charlie Baker because the voting
And Larry
mentality of
Hogan.
the Republicans is before, okay, was that they're fiscally conservative yet they're socially liberal, no? So, ngayon kasi syempre medyo malakas na talaga sila sa South tsaka sa West. So they don't bother in attracting voters in the Northeast and they'd still win. That's the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Ang Democratic Party kasi forced gang kayo na mag-extend and reach out because of the different wings of your party. May conservative, may centrist, may progressive, 'di ba? May mga siraulo,
Mm.
yung ganon, no? So, 'di ba?
Okay.
O yung sa Republican Party, lahat sila siraulo na. Kaya kahit na kaya 'di ba? Lahat sila siraulo na kaya they can win without carrying those former bases that they have. So, yun yung niyan, yung parang forgotten history of the GOP, that they used to be strong everywhere, like even in the Midwest, even in
Yeah.
California. Now
Well,
they don't
no,
they don't play it because they don't need to.
to be fair, malakas pa rin sila sa Midwest eh. Not the upper Midwest, the lower Midwest. Like Missouri,
Ohio,
Oklahoma, Kansas.
Ohio, that's
Yeah,
not the Midwest.
Ohio.
I don't. Maybe Midwest geographically, but politically, it's like the plain states. So the plain states ultimately vote Republican because of the small government mentality of the people there. Ohio is just a swing state. Ngayon lang siya naging red talaga. Like Florida, you know?
But it's
And
not the same. But you said, but then you said na it's not the same level of redness as Florida.
mm, yeah, I did say that. Because there's probably a
In
chance that
overall.
Sherrod Brown would still win that thing. Although he has to be very careful, since medyo nag-iiba na yung tono kasi ng Ohio ones when Tim Ryan lost to hillbilly penis.
Yep.
Uh, Dami ko kinaiinisan sa Republican Party ngayon. I mean, my 17-year-old self would be mad at me for that. I mean, I used to admire a lot of GOP people like Bob Dole, Bush, Colin Powell, so like that. Now, I just don't. Parang wala na eh.
I mean, ang matino na lang talaga sa Republicans when it comes to being in the elected office, Senator Murkowski na lang talaga, to be fair.
Yeah. Although many people say that ano daw dati yung seat may mga conservatives, I mean this is really may mga conservatives din naman na mababait, no? Ngayon kasi hindi mo na makita yung correlation ng morality politics nila. Like now, why are you voting for a person that is already indicted? Diba? And now you call
And
yourself the
sex and has sexual.
moral majority? I mean,
Yep.
that's the problem. I mean, that's why many people are turned off now. I mean, more so, right? Kasi may mga liberates pang
Then the
crossover.
same context can be accused to the liberals. Like
Correct.
you said, they're gonna say na, oh, you're for freedom, but then you're being fascistic,
Yeah,
selectively fascistic.
yeah. I mean, I mean, there's no harm in giving justice, right? But the problem is the optics is not that it's not pointing out to that way. Rather, it's more of you're just doing it to score political points, no, for freedom. So I mean, you should not police people that much, talaga, to the extent that it will alienate people. Katulad na lamang ng mga kaibigan natin, no? Magpapasalamat lang ako sa mga sponsors natin, si Josiah. Mhm. But anyway, it doesn't mean I hate the kid. I'm just it really resembles what I'm saying.
Yeah. It- oh,
Oh God, oh God. So
alright.
yun yung issue diyan na parang pinamumuka na nawala tuloy tayo sa main topic natin pero yun
Hindi,
nga.
okay lang. Okay lang.
Parang
Alright.
nawala ano ba yung pinag-uusapan natin yung tungkol sa yung kay Christie, di ba?
Nung
If
kanina,
Christie would vote for
ah,
Biden, yeah, he would. I mean, John Kasich voted for Biden, so why not
yeah,
Chris
not
Christie?
surprised. Yeah,
Di ba?
the
Kasi
never
ganito,
Trumpers.
ang problema kasi dyan, no, I think ang kinatalo din ni Trump no 2020, yung Lincoln Project. Kasi ang daming super PAC pala na hawak nun. So lahat ng super PAC na
Yeah,
yon bumaliktad kay Biden, who supposedly are not liberal. They're
yeah,
moderately conservative. So, when you talk about abortion, when you talk about gay rights, they're really going to say that that's really not a good thing to, ano, empower. But when you talk about the law, the constitution, how Trump is destroying the national debt, dun sila magsasabing, yeah, uh, Republicans are not Republicans anymore. They're like communists. Ganun yung mga Lincoln Project na yun. So syempre, this also goes to show that the changing no, strategies for both parties. The Republicans used to court suburban voters. Now they are courting lower class Americans, those that don't agree with them economically but agree with them socially. Okay, and then you have the Democratic Party, who is used to be the party of that, are now courting moderate voters who lives in the suburbs that disagree with them economically, but agree with them socially.
Well,
I mean, I'm just being
oh,
as accurate as I could be.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the reality now. Wala naman there's nothing we can do about it.
Mm-mm. Ay, si Josiah pala.
And
Ay, Ethan, what can you say? Haba nung ano
ano,
ko. No?
meron ka bang maano?
Okay lang po. Actually, ang
You have
gagaling ng
any
mga
comment,
insights.
Ethan?
Ang gagaling ng mga insights ninyo about that. And I also agree with that. When it comes talaga dun sa nasisisi yung government, when it comes to inflation, napanood ko yun kasi that was discussed during the CBS News midterm elections coverage. I think Gail King brought it up na, or Margaret Bernal na, kapag talagang may nangyayaring problema sa bansa, ang laging sisi dyan, kahit hindi sila kasama or kahit wala naman silang ginawa to
Mm.
make it worse, is ang laging sisi sa gobyerno.
Oo.
Kaya kaya yung 2020, buti nga ang galing ng 2022 elections kasi kahit yung mga Republicans, sinisi na nila na sinisi sa Democrats yung inflation and lahat ng Republicans, sinidikit nila yung pangalan ng mga Democrats kay Biden. Still, di ba, they gained a seat in Pennsylvania, in the House,
Yeah.
nakakuha pa na sila ng mga seats. So, I think sa messaging na talaga nakabase, itong 2024, sa messaging na siguro nakabase ng bawat kandidato kung paano
Ah,
lalabas yung resulta ng election. Kasi, and isa pa sa napansin ko ha, I think this was also discussed during 2020 na why do voters voted for Biden than Trump? Simple choice. Hindi na siya kasi mas gusto ko nung kandidato nito kasi mas madami yung record niya, kasi ganito, kasi ganyan. Ang kaibahan na ng pagboto ngayon ng mga Amerikano is, I voted for this man or woman because he or she is the best candidate. He or she is not the worst. Yun lang yun sa tingin ko napansin ko na kakaiba siguro sa pagboto ng mga Amerikano. They are not choosing the candidate kasi okay yung record niya, okay yung mga nagawa niya. They are choosing a candidate kasi worse yung other candidate.
Mm. Yeah, I
the
would
lesser
agree.
of two
It's
evils.
been
Actually, hindi lang naman
it's
siya,
been personality politics na rin
yeah.
talaga.
Just to give an academic spin on this matter, right? The lesser of two evils heuristic in politics, okay, is actually felt in a lot of democratic countries. Like, for example, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and in also the Latin American states, no? So, ang pinakaiba lang sa Amerika is that meron silang mas grand process of selecting their main uh, standard bearers. Okay, so because the United States has one of the longest electoral processes in the world, you start off with the primaries, and then you go to a general election, no? And dito natin masasabi na the reason why nagiging gano'n na lang yung pagpili nila is due to the fact that paliit na ng paliit yung choices nila. Okay? And now, it is in the primaries wherein the people can select the most uh, appealable choice that they can make, no? In the American setup, no? Hindi katulad dito sa Pilipinas na we can really say it's very, very personality centered because we don't have a long political process, 'di ba? Ang gagawin lang ng mga politiko dito sa Pilipinas, lalabas sa TV, no, lalabas sa TV show, gagawa ng libro, gagawa ng talambuhay nila kahit hindi naman nila kamukha yung artista, baka lang makaroon sila ng exposure. And then you're already set for a senatorial candidacy or presidential candidacy, no? And that's, even though we can laugh at that and even though we can ridicule it through through memes, it's really the norm that was that was established, no? So yun yung pinakaiba niyan kasi yung sa American setup, no, the reason why they choose that my candidate is the best candidate because now you're only picking 2 bananas, 'di ba? Hindi katulad sa sa Pilipinas, hindi ka pumipili ng saging. Ang pinipili mo manok, no? Kaya nga 'di ba para sabungan ang politika dito, pinagsasabong ang mga kandidato ng mga tumataya sa kanila. Eh kasi sa Amerika dalawa lang eh. So which is the most least right? Least least
Please wrong.
oo, fresh parang ganun.
Yeah. Pero natutulad na rin talaga sila sa atin eh. In a way eh.
Actually, sila naman
I
talaga
I
nag-introduce
think
ng sila naman talaga nag-introduce ng personality politics dito. It's just that
diba?
ideological kasi yung intent nila when they impose the party system here. 'Di ba?
Sa bagay.
Sila nagturo ng paggogobyerno dito. So lahat ng kasiraan nila namana natin. We did it double or triple if you want. If you're very cynical about it. Oo, 'di
Yeah,
ba?
I would agree.
Ang ano lang, ang 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 ano ko lang, ang saving grace lang kasi sa US and Western democracies is that at least they really care for the sanity or democracy of the people, unlike here that we have elements of uh, family dominance in a lot of areas, no? And not only that, the if you think the American system is corrupt, bakit tayo nagugas kamay eh mas malala dito ang pera, no? I mean ang campaign dito sa Pilipinas ay bibili sila ng ballpen, magpapaprint sila ng mga t-shirt for how many millions of pesos, and then people will just use that as a reason to vote for that candidate without thinking twice, no? O kaya naman magbibigay sila nun, hindi nila alam, hindi rin sila binoto nung lingid sa kaalaman nila na hindi rin sila binoto ng candidate na yun, tinanggap lang, no? For the sake of getting things free, no? So in a way,
Well,
you're all, you
that's
are
happen in the local level.
you're corrupting, or the people themselves are not concerned about democracy, no? I mean, I'm
Mm.
sorry if I sound elitist, but that's really what it is eh. We have to
Yeah.
be na parang, di ba, binigyan ako ng bigas,
I
di
think
ko
we're
boboto. Pero tinanggap ko yung bigas, eh di lalo lang nilang gagawin yun. Para lang yung nililigawan, di ba? Sinusuyo
ah
sa wikang Tagalog. No?
ayun naman
So,
talaga yun. Yun
so,
naman din talaga yun.
so yun. So, just to give a comparative analysis on the matter.
Mm.
That, that's good.
Wait,
Mm.
okay. Nawala tuloy sa isip ko. God damn it. I got some. I think it's time to see some shit na no, it's just ano bang gusto kong wait, I'm trying to think of something na pan next topic on this same thing. I think we can watch some ads naman if okay lang sa inyo. If, yung iba sa inyo, you probably had seen these political ads in 2024, but you know,
I think I have
but
to quit. No, I'm going to stay, but I'm not going to comment on the ads anymore. Like,
okay. Sige,
masasawa.
sige.
Yeah, let Ethan. Let's hear from him. Off muna ako.
Sige. Alright, sige. Naka-off din si so. Wait lang. Alright. So, no, I'm gonna change this thing. I'm gonna change this thing saglit lang. Anyway, yeah. Dito na nga lang sa na to. Wag. Hindi. Sige na,
To
tingnan
today's video.
natin
Today
lang.
is Monday, January
No,
1st.
no, no, no. I need to stop. I need to stop there. Hmm. No, no, no. Wait. Sorry, wait. I need to think of something else that it's gonna benefit this conversation. Uh, I'm sorry. Wait, I need to think of something else. No, we're just gonna go to the Trump thing because I wanna see I wanna see some legal troubles from the former president.
In a major blow to both Donald Trump and House Republicans to start 2024, House Democrats have released a bombshell report outlining evidence that Donald Trump took in at least $7.8 million from 20 foreign entities while he was in office, including $5.5 million from China, one of our largest adversaries. The second largest spender was Saudi Arabia, spending more than $615,000 at Trump World Tower and Trump International Hotel. And here's why this is especially damaging for the right. They are currently immersed in an impeachment effort against Joe Biden for alleged foreign corruption that they've yet to find an ounce of proof for, all the while contending with actual proof, actual evidence of that very phenomenon with Donald Trump. In other words, now the Republicans are tasked with trying to impeach Joe Biden for allegations that they have no evidence of, all the while supporting a guy who did do what they're alleging Biden did, but with actual evidence to the tune of almost $8 million. Almost like lining up behind a criminal might pose some issues if your principal attack is corruption. Here's the full list of the countries that directly channeled money to Donald Trump.
Oh my
And
gosh.
keep in mind, this isn't some...
Nadamay tayo.
Here's a full list of the countries...
Nadamay yung Pinas. No thanks to the Trump Towers. Oh my gosh. What the like tingnan nyo, what the hell are countries doing in this list? Oh my gosh. I'm so ashamed that we had anong ginawa natin dito? Oh my goodness.
Alam
Countries
mo,
doing
alam mo, hindi, wala ako kasalanan diyan. Sabihin niya, ano yan, tatay. Maganda manalo uli si Trump. I mean,
I never
pasalama,
expected us to be never
pasalamatan ko lang si Marcon. Supporter ko yun. Thank you.
but oh my god, but seriously, oh my gosh, like what the hell are we doing here? Oh my goodness, this is
the
so
countries that
embarrassing.
directly channeled money to Donald Trump. And keep in mind, this isn't some vague fear mongering about buying influence with no evidence to actually prove any of it. This is direct evidence as disclosed in court, showing that Trump profited directly from foreign countries while he was president. The notion that any of these people could claim that Biden is the peak of corruption while ignoring actual, tangible corruption goes to show what a joke this whole impeachment effort by the GOP really is. Now, you'll be shocked to learn that thus far, House Republicans don't seem to mind that Trump made millions in office from foreign governments, while arguing that unfounded allegations of Biden doing the same thing are somehow disqualifying. James Comer, chair of the House Oversight Committee, said former President Trump has legitimate businesses, but the Bidens do not. He
Oh
claimed that the
come
Bidens
on.
had made
Shut
3
up.
times as much as Mr. Trump had from foreign governments. By cashing in on the Biden name, no goods or services were provided other than access to Joe Biden and the Biden network.
Oh wait, I need to stop hearing this. Wait, I had a question to Ethan. Like, it just surprised me that you're supporting Republican Senate Republican incumbents. Like, yeah, like why do you support those Senate Republicans?
Ako, I support those kasi um, siguro wala pa akong mahanap na tamang Democratic candidate for that race. So, and also work-wise, siguro, siguro hindi sure eh. Work-wise,
Hindi,
um,
okay lang.
I think I think they're working naman. So, 'yun. Pero abangan natin kung talagang may Democrat. Pero basta pagdating nitong taon na 'to, idediretso na natin. Idediretso ko na talaga na Democrats ang susuportahan ko.
Okay. Kahit yeah, I no, I get it. Why do you support the Republican incumbents? It's just yun nga, name re- no recognition to some of these non-incumbent Democrats, like yung sa North Dakota, Indiana. Yeah, I do see your point about that. That's why you do support the Republican Senate candidates. Okay, so yun. And yeah, sige, I'm gonna talk about why I support these non-incumbents na lang din pala. Alright, so first one, dun sa Arizona, of course, I also support Representative Gallego because he has the best chance to flip Arizona to fully blue again. Since we all know that Senator Sinema flip it to an independent seat, and in yeah, and I think he really has the best chance to be the next U.S. Senator of Arizona. I think he would do well, mostly in his district pagdating of this November election. But in the rest of the districts, if Carrie Lake is gonna be a terrible candidate, which she will be in November, I think Gallego might pick off some House Republican districts in his favor. I think he might get the sixth district, and he might get the first district or the second, depending on doon sa partisan voting index nila on the House elections. And in California, of course, support Representative Katie Porter, but then I think she might lose the primary. I think it's gonna be between Adam Schiff and Representative Barbara Lee, or Adam Schiff and Steve, tama ba yun? Yung sa California. Si yun nga, saan nga ulit yun? Steve Garvey. Yeah, Steve Garvey. Like, it might be a Republican, Democrat versus Republican in California if, Adam Schiff wins the primary with Garvey. They make it to the November runoff. In Delaware, of course, si Representative Rochester, of course, uh, because representation. In Florida, I don't know. Would I support the former Congresswoman Marcasol Powell? I might, but not fully, because I don't think Florida is gonna be that tight anymore. Yeah, I really don't think it's gonna be a tight one anymore. Indiana, mm, yeah, I still support this Democrat, but he's not gonna win because I just only supported the DSCC to endorse them, but it's not gonna happen anymore. In Maryland, do you think like county executive also Brooks would win the this year's primary, or there would be another uh white guy in the US Senate, Ethan.
Angela also Brooks can win kung wala may if may tumakbo ng representative ng Maryland ngayon, well, that will be a competitive race. But as of the moment, she has a chance, a big chance so far.
Mm. I'm just worried lang. I'm just worried to the funding of her campaign. But yeah, I hope she would win this primary season. And in eh, w- anyway, say Michigan naman, I really think Representative Slotkin might win. I mean, wala rin tayong magagawa if she wins. Because Harper, of course, late entry. And given that he still has his role on the good doctor now that he left. Diba? So I hope na we can still see him win the primary election, so Michigan can have a black senator, black U.S. senator come January, even though a carpetbagger. But in Missouri, I think Kuntz is gonna be the Amy McGrath of this of this Senate election, because we've been hyping him up. So yeah, that's why I don't think. So yeah, that's why I don't think he's gonna win the general election. But if only if he does win, it would make my life be if ano yun, it would make my life better in a way. Oh my gosh. We can just watch this na lang, this thing na ano. So we can have more fun in a way, I hope.
Ignore the haters, just like I ignore all the liberals.
God,
We're going to listen to the people,
Mm.
and the people have spoken. And our best performing video was the worst Republicans in Congress. So for my first choice, I'm going to go with that one.
Good one.
Oh, boo all you want, and you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
Do you realize how shitty you have to be booed by Republicans as a Republican?
But he's just like the textbook example of getting ahead by doing the worst thing possible.
And by the
It's
way,
terrible.
a lot of Republicans are looking at that exact strategy by Matt Gaetz and just replicating it from, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
If we're protected with security guards with guns, there would be no mass shootings at school.
So that first clip
Dumb
is
shit.
her harassing a survivor of the Parkland school shooting before she was a member of Congress. The second clip is her holding up a picture of Hunter Biden's penis at a committee hearing.
So things have gotten better. She really settled into the job.
The DCPA says she was vaping. Boebert's team denied that, said the haze was from fog machines in the show. That claim goes up in smoke when you see the video. The theater's incident report says Boebert pulled the "Don't you know who I am" card on the way out.
Where she lost me on this one is, do you know who I am?
I was just going to
You
say
can't
that.
have-
That is the last time I would want anyone to know who I am.
Right. Yeah. What the fuck? What is she thinking?
So we have a whole cornucopia of the shittiest people in government right there. But one person who is conspicuously absent was Mike Johnson. That's because he hadn't risen to power at the point that we had filmed that video. But of course, now everybody knows who Mike Johnson is. And he has, I think, very rightfully earned his spot among the worst people in Congress.
Yeah, I mean,
Alright,
this is a man who
he
shares his
left.
porn viewing with his son. So that's weird. But yes, you're
I
right.
don't
It was a
think
real
it's gonna
poo-poo
return
platter of
anymore.
assholes. All right, Brian. So with my first pick, I'm going to go with something that's near and dear to my heart, which is disastrous press conferences by political candidates. I've been a part of some of them. I've watched a whole lot more. I love this episode.
Poor McConnell. Freezing.
Did you hear the question, Senator?
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
Irrespective of your thoughts on Mitch McConnell, which I'm sure we have many, but just as like a human, it is tough to watch that happen. But there have been other unforgettable moments at press conferences in politics over the years.
Yeah, believe it or not, it gets worse.
Gets worse.
So December 14th, 2008, it's a press conference at Baghdad with the Prime Minister of Iraq. An Iraqi journalist screamed, "This is a farewell kiss from the Iraqi people," dog in Arabic. There was a statue of the incident was built in Tikrit, part of Iraq. I read that someone offered to buy the shoes for like $10 million.
This stood out as just peak unforgettable. The guy clearly, first of all, intended to hold a press conference at a Four Seasons hotel.
Mhm.
There was some mix-up, and he ended up at a Four Seasons Total Landscaping parking lot where he tried to downplay the fact that all the networks called it for Biden by doing that moment where he just goes, "All the networks!"
All the networks. Wow. All the networks.
But that's as if all the networks calling it isn't historically the exact thing that we all wait for.
It's how every
he tries-
election ever.
that is the thing. He's like, "Oh, all the networks have called it." But yeah, that's how it works.
Fox called it first, you fucking idiot.
Hey, Tommy, let's see if you learned anything.
Boy, the joke I was about to do was Mitch McConnell still freezing, and if those had happened at the same time, it would have ended very badly for me. Well done.
Yes, I will do the rest of the show with one shoe on. All right, for my next pick, I'm going to go with dumb Fox News stories, an issue I hold near and dear in my heart.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Woke M&Ms have returned.
The green M&M got her boots back, but apparently is now a lesbian, maybe. And there's also a plus-sized, obese purple M&M. So we're going to cover that, of course.
Here's the thing. I'm with Tucker here, man. I need to be attracted to M&Ms if I'm going to
I need to fuck my M&Ms.
buy one a drink, hopefully bring it back to my place. So
Okay
I
na.
can't do that if they're not hot.
Now the news that he was raised a Muslim, Barack Obama, raised as a Muslim. This is huge.
This story was aired. It is not true. CNN later went to the school to fact check this nonsensical story and found that teachers were wearing Western clothes. There were Christians, there were Buddhists, there were Muslims. It was just like it was a normal school full of normal kids. They called it a madrasa because the Muslims happened to attend. But the subtext here was the original OG birther narrative that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, that he was not a Christian, that he was lying about his identity, and that he was secretly a Muslim. And when I tell you, like, I called Fox News that day and I screamed at someone so far up the food chain from me that I think I achieved orbit. Look, some of the audience, we got some feedback that dumb Fox News stories is redundant, and we hear you. We commit to not abusing the English language going forward or being redundant in any way. I am going to go with, for my next pick, again, back to my heart, back to my soul, back to my roots, campaign ending political gaffes.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C.
I need to find some shit that we can talk about. Anyway, so no.
As I said at the beginning of the last segment, I am back from my break. So happy to be here. And we're getting ourselves sort of calibrated as we begin 2024. So we talked already about the most important aspect of this year politically, Trump hopefully being defeated in the election, democracy.
No. It's okay. We can try looking something at breaking points. Saglit lang to, sir. Oh my gosh. No. Nope. Oh, god damn it. Oh shit. In-interview niya si in-interview niya si
Joining me
Tucker.
now is somebody who needs no introduction, Tucker Carlson, founder
God
of the
damn it.
Tucker Carlson Network. Tucker, it's great to see you, sir. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Saagar. Thank you.
Absolutely. I owe my entire career to this man, and I always say that to anybody who will listen. So
Siya talaga yung Indian Tucker.
I appreciate you
God
very
damn
much. And especially, though, about what you're doing now. You've launched this new company, the Tucker Carlson Network. You're free of cable news, I think, for the first time in decades. So first and foremost, how does it feel? And what do you want to try and
Oh, come on. Walang kwenta yung breaking points. Jesus.
accomplish now that you are generally free of the system?
So I'm following your path. I probably never would have done it if it hadn't been done for me. So I'm grateful that I was unexpectedly bounced from my last job because, you know, inertia takes over and you get in your tunnel and you just do your thing every day. And having a daily show, as you know, is like, it's so busy that you can't think about it.
I'm gonna miss this intro daw sa Fox News. Ang ganda pa naman ng tugtog ng intro niya.
Thing in larger terms. So I'm sincerely glad that I was forced to make a change. I have, over the last year, really come to only read independent media just because I don't trust anything else. So I'm proud to be in it. And what I want to do is really simple, create a news company that can't be canceled. I mean, having been, I'm not whining about it, but, having been silenced a couple of times, several times, I don't want that again. So, you need a business model that is impervious to coordinated attacks against you. And that's the subscription model, because I'm happy to have advertisers, but you can't be dependent on the whims of advertisers in a world where there are very well-funded organizations designed to bully advertisers into leaving you. So that's why we went with a subscription model, part subscription model. But mostly I want to do what you do, and I think most people in this world do. Cover the stories that are getting no attention at all, that are often the most important stories, certainly the most interesting stories. And be honest. Be really honest as you can possibly be. And you can only do that when you're in a certain headspace.
Absolutely.
And but I think it's super important.
Yeah, I mean, the day you were let go from Fox News, I texted you. I said, I believe that this is the best thing that could ever happen to you. And I still believe it. I'm curious, though. There's a big debate amongst media experts. They're like, well, Fox News is a machine and all of this. But they don't seem to really grapple with the decline of the medium itself. So I'm curious, do you think independent media and even the company that you are building, could it ever rival the power of cable in terms of cultural cachet, in terms of driving politics? Or do you think that they're still going to retain a lot of the power that they still have?
Oh, no, I think they're done. and for a couple of reasons. One is business related. I don't think the model works. It's too expensive, by the way. I don't think NBC News will be here in 10 years. I'd bet my car on it. So there's that. I mean, they're in decline inexorably. They actually have lasted a lot longer. The age of television went on much longer than I thought it would. I started doing it in 1995. I had grown up in it because my dad did it. So I've seen it longitudinally for, over 50 years, and I'm just amazed at its durability. But everything comes to an end, our lives included. And so, yeah, no, that's definitely going away. But I also think, not to be preachy, they devalued their own currency by lying too much. I mean, people lie, they shade the truth, they hold things. I mean, that's just like part of the human condition. But you can't be just like a flat-out propaganda organization for like Pfizer, because it's just too obvious. And when people figure out that that's what you are, they don't trust you. And in a world with choices, they will choose not to believe you, and then they will choose not to watch you. And and the numbers show that that's happening. So the other thing I would say is that it's not simply about convincing all 350 million Americans of something. The way our society and all societies are structured, if you can convince, the top 2% of the population who engage with this stuff daily, who are probably making most of the decisions, you can have a massive effect on the whole country. And so, like Substack, for example, I can't believe how many Substacks I subscribe to, I pay for, because I want to support it, but also I get a lot. I mean, they've taken the place of what small magazines were when I was a kid, or books were when my father was a kid. A place for people to air their views in a longer form and in a more honest way. Like, what is going on in our society? You can actually learn a lot from Substack. You learn absolutely nothing from the cable news channels. So just that, it's a small company. It'll probably never be a huge company, but it's had a huge effect. Shows like yours that came completely out of nowhere, with people who were not nationally famous, and then you become nationally famous just because you're being honest. I mean, like, look at your own life. It kind of tells the story. I don't know how old you were when you started it, but your ascent and the ascent of a number of people like you, not just who cover politics, but who are, effectively cultural commentators or comedians who are honest. Theo Vaughn. How many people have heard of Theo Vaughn last year? Maybe, some, but all of a sudden Theo Vaughn becomes this phenomenon because he's honest. I mean, so there's a massive space that's all a reaction against the lying. And I think it's like the bright spot in America in 2023.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say. I think one of the things
it's true.
What a lot of people want to hear from you, I think, is that you played the game at the highest level. And so are all of our suspicions true about what's being told to people in the anchor chair, about what you can say, about what you can't say, about commercial impact, about the pressure in the cooker situation as to what's being controlled that people are seeing?
I really should write a book on this, not that anyone would read it, but just to sort of work out my own thoughts about it. Again, when you're working in a business that's that regimented, to show every night exactly the same time, you can't be late, it's like your whole life, and I wrote my script, so my whole life was about writing my script. Like, that's kind of all I did. So I was telling you that to admit that I missed a lot. I personally, because this was not my first show, it was like my 8th show that I'd had over the course of my life. I made a very clear deal with my employer out loud and just said, look, I'm not going to be told what to say or think, period. It's not my company. If you don't like what I'm saying, take me off the air. But I'm not going to sort of say or not say something because that would violate my conscience, and I can't do that. So, and they agreed, to their great credit. And then at the end, they exercised their option and pulled the plug, which was their prerogative. And I wasn't really mad. I was confused, but I wasn't mad about it. And I'm not mad now. So I'm not really sure, but I will say, looking back on it, the Ukraine war and the vax, and to some extent January 6th, on which I think I've been fundamentally vindicated. I don't know, I had out-of-step views on all three things, but two of them were absolutely, were red lines, like you couldn't go there. And I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I think for different reasons. The vax, because obviously the pharma companies are the biggest advertiser in media. They don't advertise to sell their products. You're not, people aren't buying mostly. They can't buy them directly. So why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that not to sell the product, but to influence the coverage of the product. And that's very effective. So I crossed that line in a big way because I thought the vax was dangerous, and it turns out it was. And then on Ukraine, it's like every single person in the top 1% for income and influence, like literally almost every single person, heard this weird frequency, this dog whistle that commanded them to worship Zelensky. And I'm not exactly sure what that was. I looked at Zelensky and I'm like, that guy's really bad. Yes. He wants to get my country involved in a nuclear war. And, I don't know him, so I'm not attacking him personally, but anyone who wants my kids to risk death in a nuclear war is my enemy. It was just kind of that simple. So I was like, this guy's evil. To the extent that he's acting against my children's interests. And saying that was like, oh my gosh, it's like a bomb going off. Like people couldn't even deal with it. And I'm not quite sure what that was, other than everybody in Aspen, Nantucket, Jackson, and Bethesda was like all in on this thing. And someday historians will discover why. I really don't know, but that fact is true.
That's such an important point. And this is another thing, too. I've always respected the most is, to a certain extent, I rejected the system early on. But you came up in it, and you also openly gave them the middle finger, even while growing up next to them, living next to them for years. Yeah. I've watched it with Ukraine, and I watch it now with Israel. I watched in particular. There was a lot of consternation around some of the comments you made, I think by Ben Shapiro and other, where you were like, well, I've never seen this level of care about Americans who are dying of fentanyl, which I think is a traditional nationalist message. And yet I've watched the entire kind of right-wing ecosystem get embroiled in fundamentally what is a third world conflict. Now, we can say support, not support, we can have criticisms, et cetera, of that. But what explains this like literal allegiance to narrative on Ukraine, on Israel? Why is it that so many of these people don't seem to have the same level of care for actual American citizens?
I find it really distressing. And in both of those conflicts, I approached it with a clean conscience because I just don't have strong feelings one way or the other. And I'm not hostile. I've never hated Ukraine. I don't have any feelings about Ukraine. And Russia, same thing. I've never been to either place. I'm not invested emotionally. So I could just look at it from an American perspective. In the case of Israel and the Arab world, I've spent a fair amount of time in both, and I like both. And I felt terrible for the people who were killed on October 7th. I still do. So I had no weird motive. I was just like thinking about it from an American perspective. Is this good for us or is it not? And I was just amazed by the intolerance and the willingness to immediately go to invective and character assassination.
American isolationism ng mga to.
If the people who live in Gaza who are being moved out are so evil and dangerous that they can't live in the region, why would you?
Like they can't even call this out to the Republicans, war hawks as well. Like they just blame Democrats all over again. They fully cannot blame this on the Republicans. Which, it baffles me. They really cannot blame Republicans on this one. Like, oh my gosh.
Why would you want them to move into my country? I mean, what are you saying? They can't live there because it's too scary to live next to them, but they can live next to me? So I at that point, I felt very hostile about that because it showed such contempt for me and my family and my neighbors and my country. It is my country. That's how I feel about it anyway. It's all of our country. And so I was like disgusted by that. And I said so. And I don't know why that's weird. Why wouldn't I be offended by that? And then it was immediately, I'm a hater or a bigot or something like that. None of that registered with me because, first of all, I've been attacked for so long, but attacks that aren't true. If somebody said, wow, you've gained some weight this summer, I'd be like, oh, it would hurt my feelings because it's true. But if someone's like, oh,
Yung tawa talaga ni Tucker. Kaya ano, okay din naman siya sa akin in a way, but you know, not fully kasi makulit yung ano niya eh, makulit yung tawa ni Carlson eh.
well, you're a hater, you hate, that's not true. So I don't really care. But I did think it showed like the level of not just corruption, which I knew, but of like emotional instability and craziness. I mean, there are people, and I stopped reading any of it, but there are people on the right who have spent the last 2 months every single day focused on a conflict in a foreign country as our own country becomes dangerously unstable, financial collapse.
Ayun, dun niya tinira. Ito na, tinira na niya yung right on their long-standing foreign policies of, protecting other countries kasi nga it's important now for America's republic to protect these other countries. Don't be full by a shithole. May isa akong kilala na fall sa ano na to, sa shithole na to. Hidden racism. Yeah, it's basic racism. It's basic racism 101. Asses. Yeah, like hindi talaga siya rightist talaga siya through and through. At least he admits it. Mahal ko yan.
With tens of millions of people who shouldn't be here in the country. We don't know their identities or the purpose of their being here. Like stuff that's could destroy the country for real and make it impossible for my kids to live here. They've said nothing about that, and they're focused with laser intensity on foreign conflicts. And I'm like, at some point, I've got 4 kids. If I'm so caught up in the problems of my neighbor's children and completely ignoring my own children as they get addicted to drugs and kill themselves, I'm not against helping my neighbor's kids, but clearly I don't love my kids. I mean, that's the only logical conclusion, and they don't care about the country at all. And that's kind of their prerogative, but I do, because I have no choice, because I'm from here, my family's been here hundreds of years, I plan to stay here. Like, I'm shocked by how little they care about the country, and including the person you mentioned. And I can't imagine how someone like that.
Really? Bakit hindi mo tinira yung mga hindi mo tinira yung mga kapwa mo Fox hosts on what they say about being protective of the crony capitalism, like tulad ng sinabi ni Bill O'Reilly.
Someone like that could get an audience of people who claim to care about America, because he doesn't, obviously, right?
Right. Well, I mean, Tucker, we've seen it too on free speech. I mean, people who become multimillionaires, who've, made entire careers, who've, literally became famous, on this very reason. I know you've spoken about this previously, but it's very important to our audience as well, is that, standing up for free speech rights of people you disagree with is probably the most important exercise. And we've seen some of that come for American citizens on Palestine. How do you work through this too, when we're both under such immense pressure, even social pressure, of like, how could you support this? Take maybe the context of the university presidents. We've got billionaires like Bill Ackman, I'm curious what you make of this. My assessment is they're upset that they're not included as marginalized within the DEI regime. They claim to be against the DEI regime. But will you really keep going to make sure that, all this racial hatred and all this other that's been enshrined in elite institutions will be, once you get a win, are you really going to keep going past that? What's your assessment of this general moment on Palestinian, free speech, hypocrisy, and more?
Well, we have free speech in this country, and it applies to people we disagree with by definition, period. I mean, it's the first right guaranteed that, of course, it precedes government. It's given to us by God. As the Dodd says, but it's the first right enumerated in our founding documents. So it's the foundation of the country. And so you can't give any ground on that, like none. And anyone who would give ground on that, and I would include the governor of Florida, who I think is a good governor, and I like him personally, but signing a censorship, the governor of Florida, who I think is a good governor, and I like him personally, but signing a censorship bill in Florida is completely unacceptable. And I don't care what your motives are. I mean, this spring, there was some black nationalist group that was indicted by the Biden Justice Department for its views on Russia. And my first thought was, that's not acceptable. Now, how much do I have in common with the black nationalist group that I guess probably hates people who look like me? Actually, I probably 100% chance I'd like him if I had dinner with him. To be honest, I'm sure they're really good guys. I mean, I just sort of feel that, but whatever. It was irrelevant to me. You can't do that. You can't try to put people in prison for expressing opinions the government doesn't like or the ruling class doesn't like, or any opinion.
Bakit mga kayong mga rightist supporting ng mga rightist government ang gumagawa din nun Hindi lang naman sa left yun Dito nga sa Pilipinas ang dami ding na-silent lalo na nung time ni former President Duterte. I mean, are you kidding me? Fucker Carlson? And Trump does this and the former president does the same thing. Well, unfortunately, the latter's dead, so I kind of feel bad for the latter. So
any opinion must be protected, or no opinions are protected. So anybody who seeks to limit my ability to say what I think, believe what I want, is treating me as a slave. I mean, not as a human being, and certainly not as a citizen. That's just really clear, and I don't know why people don't grasp this. But one sort of parenthetical, ironic note, to see people who spent a career mocking, the sensitive liberals on campus who want safe spaces and they're, feeling in danger because opinions are violence, say that exact same thing. People feel unsafe. What? No. Words are not violence. You have to tolerate them in a free society or it's not a free society. As to the question of DEI, the whole thing is Jim Crow. I mean, it's grotesque. The idea that certain people on the basis of immutable characteristics get...
DEI daw is like the 21st century Jim Crow. I mean, how?
Yeah, I'm gonna say a little bit about. Yeah, I know. This is why I don't watch shows that are pandering to libertarian fallacies that are being spread out to the public. I mean, honestly, words can hurt you, right? Not all people would be motivated by attacks. Let's say, sinabihan kita, bobo ka. Oh. Hindi naman lahat ng tao mamomotivate It would actually cause more hatred because now they're going to take it against you and they're going to reason out that the reason why they've done something violent against you is how you speak, right? And this libertarian thinking is actually not in line with conservative thought kasi conservative thought tells us to watch our words. And then now you're going to say just because hindi na dominant ang conservative thought ay mag-freedom tayo kasi ngayon we get to be edgy in what we say even though it's not factual, even though it's pandering to a base. So clearly this show is actually a pandering kaya nga I don't trust any of these people anymore. I mean, it depends on the person who's
or none at all.
Yeah. Honestly, nakinig mo yung mga salita. Jim Crow? Yeah. My God, you're just stripped off of something and now you're comparing it to Jim Crow. Nakakahiya naman doon sa mga namatay dahil sa Jim Crow. I mean, segregation was a physical thing. It's not only, they're not limited on what they were saying, right? They were limited because they were enslaved physically, mentally. But these guys can still roam around the United States and be hated, and they're calling for mercy. They're calling for they're calling something or certain regulations as bad. Buti sana kung totally nawala sila sa air. They're just providing an alternative, yet they're also spewing out propaganda. Because propaganda cannot be taken away from news. Right? Especially when you have the power to spread information in a very quick level. No? So kaya nga ako naging centrist kasi it's all going to lead to the same power dynamic. Power dynamics are not limited to one side. All of them have the same interest in the power dynamics. Okay? But it doesn't mean na lahat ng nasa power dynamics ay malevolent ang intentions. Okay? There are certain aspects wherein the power dynamic is needed for certain good policies to be brought forth, no? Which these people that you're seeing right now don't want to, because they're trying to say that let's be nihilistic because everything is corrupt, even though in their own show, in their own bubble, they are also doing the exact same thing. So in a way, what they're trying to project here is also pointing at them, right?
Without realizing.
Without realizing it. Because they're stupid morons who are just there for the sake of media mileage. So that they
Well,
can,
that's what it is. That's what is it. Pag political pundit ka talaga.
yeah,
Especially if you're independent. But
yeah,
funded by your fans.
yeah. Funded by your fans, kaya nagiging panderer. Kaya nga ayoko yung mga Liebert fallacy na yan, na parang words will not hurt me. Hindi yun totoo. Lahat ng tao may emosyon. Let's not try to imagine people that are robots na sabihan
Sige.
mo na kung ano-ano.
Let's follow yung logic ni Tucker dito. So if we see him in real life, then insultuhin natin siya na insultuhin. Do you think he would not file libel charges against us?
I think it's going to be much worse. It's going to be much worse because dun lalabas yung mga libertarian shithole na yes, we care for your freedom, but if you harm us, we would do everything to destroy you. Diba?
Kasi yung kaso pag Filipino libertarian, hindi pumapalag eh.
Hindi yun totoo. Kasi sila malakas lang sila pagka sinasabihan mo sa online. No? Tulad niya si Claro, tingin mo may yan, mas maano siya. Wala akong pakialam. We're having the freedom. Yan ang freedom, di ba? Sige.
Yep.
Pag
Wala
pumalag
na
ka,
di naman yung mapapanood to.
Pag pumalag ka, hipokrito ka, ano mas mahalaga? Prinsipyo mo o sarili mo? Ayan, yan tayo. Sige. Freedom pala. Kala nyo yung... Alam na, ang dami talaga ako na nababangga eh. Tingnan mo yung kahapon. Di ba? Galit na galit siya. Maawain mo 15 anyos. Honestly.
Nagtanong ka pa sa akin, ayos din naman ang sagot ko, tapos sasabihin mo, hindi, walang correlation yan.
Sasabihin niya, baka daw maintriga. Alam mo na yun, buti nakatunog siya. Talaga. Yung isa rin, yung conservative din, di ba? Naalala mo, binaliktad tayo. Ngayon, hindi siya makasabat sa comment natin. Kakapal ng mga mukha, no? Tapos ngayon, di ba? Sabi sa'yo eh. Ako naman, if authenticity lang ang usapan, I may not be the most perfect one, but at least I'm trying my best, right? I mean, I don't care if you're liberal, libertarian.
You're trying to be consistent.
Yeah. Ayoko
yung this is about consistency.
Okay lang naman maging ideological ka, pero wag kang katulad yan. May mga gravitas tong mga nag-uusap na to. So, their validity is going to be questioned. Diba? Because let's be frank, those people who would watch this would probably be agreeing to what they're saying without any sort of questioning.
Yep. Kasi yun, entrench eh.
No.
Entrench. Ang galing nga mag-pande. So.
Is bad because they're in that group, because they look a certain way or because their parents looked a certain way. If you tell them that over time, that group's going to get hurt. And we don't need to guess about this. What actually
Eh, di ba
happened in
ganun
Europe
din
not
naman?
that
Eh, di
long
ba
ago.
ngayon yung nangyari sa blacks in the 50s and 60s? Tanga pala to eh.
Racist nga. Ano ka ba? May pagka-racist
Yun
yan.
nga eh. Hindi pagka, racist
Talag,
talaga.
racist talaga. Kumbaga sa ano, ah, ang ano nga lang, just to end my my part of this. Para ang nangyayari ngayon in our society, and this is not only limited to United States, also here, like
In a whole, yes.
we have used our freedom to say whatever we want to actually justify our prejudices. Even in the Philippines, like even here, like pagka kunwari namatayan ka, binaril ka ng or ang gumawa nun ay mga Chinese. Magkakaroon ka ng sentiment towards or sentiment against the Chinese, lalahatin mo. 'Di ba? O kaya kunyari nakaaway ka ng Muslim kasi di nagbayad ng utang sa'yo. Magiging ano mo 'yon, magiging mantra mo 'yon ay meron ka ng parang dahil sa nangyari lang doon, i-justify mo na lahat sila ganun. Para nawalan na ng
which is not.
objectivities yung mga tao.
Nawalan nga ng nuance.
Totoo 'yun. Kaya nga 'di ba? Kaya nga disagree din ako dun kay Marcon in saying that social media empowers knowledge. No. Social media empowers egocentric attitudes. Which is completely different from when you debate face to face. You can actually relax your way of exchanging of ideas, no? Ang problema nga lang, syempre, pag face to face tapos naka-media, you're expected to be they are asked to portray a certain way so that they can attract attention, no? Which means to say parang pawalan na nakakawalan respeto pala talaga yung SOCMED as the years go by. Because now, people are getting more polarized through and through. Diba?
Aminado naman ako, kasama din ako dyan. Ay, aminado. At least
Diba?
aminado ako dun.
And ako naman, reactionary lang naman yung aking mga I mean, honestly, hindi naman ako nagsisimula ng bad statement na mas nakakabuti sa bansa yung tanggalin na yung 60-40, ganyan-ganyan, without actually having sufficient evidence for it. Diba?
Without the sufficient justification.
Yes. At saka hindi mo pwedeng i-justify na na hindi naman ako academic kaya I don't need those things. What's important is I am given the license to do what I want. That's actually not good because you're also a citizen of this country or citizen of the world perhaps. So you should be be careful. Kasi nga nobody would like or not all people would like you. Not everyone would appreciate your cup of tea. Diba? So yung ginagawa ni Politikal Salot and amongst others, I don't care if he listens to this. He's already been your guest, right? So we're being true to what we're advocating. Diba? What they're doing is that they're trying to mess things up so that they can split people's opinions. Bakit mo gagawin yun? Malala na nga yung problema natin dyan. Diba? I mean, di ba sila nahihiya? Sa Amerika nga, wala na tayong magagawa. Di naman tayo Americans. So that's whatever's going to happen there should not happen here, and yet they're doing it. Unti-unti. Yang J. Aruga, yung mga ibang ganon, yung mga progressives na na mga woke daw, diba? Tapos lalaitin yung mukha mo. I mean, pare-pares na naman kayong ginagawa yan, Hindi ba kayo nahihiya sa mga sarili nyo?
Buti nga di pa ako nawawojak eh.
So what I'm doing is reactionary. I never start my wars. I react to it. I defend myself. Diba?
Kasi I like to start.
Kasama yung well, that's, I think I would say this to not to lecture you, but you should not do it. Wait for them to attack you and bite. Pero don't ever start the biting because that's going to make you look bad Right? Katulad ng
Yun
ginagawa
yan,
nga niyan.
nag-backfire talaga sa akin yung Starbucks thing. So, nalait tuloy personally.
Yeah.
Sige.
I mean, yun naman kasi, I think it's a matter of optics as well. Like, yun nga yung hindi ko gusto. 'Di ba? Kaya nga hindi na rin naman problema yung partisanship eh. Kasi hindi na nga mawawala yun. Okay, there will always be conservatives, there will always be liberals. But the more they do it, the more they stoke ano yung tawag dito? Unwarranted or
Fear.
hindi completely based yung mga sinasabi nila. So magkakaroon talaga ng problema dyan because now you're using liberty to misinform people, to misorient them, right? So in a way, parang baliktad yung nangyayari. Many people believed 10 years ago that SOCMED is good. Actually, 2013 pa lang sinasabi na to na kailangan daw ang political science, ang psychology, ang history, dapat daw maging flexible siya sa SOCMED kasi people will get more and more information. But alas, kabaliktaran yung nangyari. Doon na nag-spread yung mga half-truths, doon na nagsimula yung clickbait, doon na nagsimula yung parang nai-scam ka online because you are projected a good product, pagpunta sa'yo, pangit. Diba? I mean, baliktad yung nangyari even in the fields of social science, which is dangerous. Like in political science, now everybody gets to be an expert. Which is so wrong. No? Kaya nga interesting debate yung nangyari kay Sir Contreras at kay Sir Anthony. Kasi Sir Anthony believes that if we modify our structures in social media, it's going to be a force for good. Pero yung kasing kay Sir Contreras actually is resonative of what's really happening eh. Like ikaw ba naman as a person of the academy, you advance yourself, you try to expand your field, enrich your knowledge upon the field you have interested on, tapos yuyukakan lang na kung sino-sino. Diba?
Or kung hindi yurakan, magmamarunong.
Ayun nga. It's the same thing. Actually, in the academic field, pagka nagmarunong ka na, nangyuyura ka na ng discipline. Like for example, yung hindi to nangyayari sa music and arts, pero ganun na nga rin yun. Let's like for example, you criticize an album, trying to project yourself as very objective upon the music that is being heard. So, nayuyurakan yung discipline ng mga totoong nag-aaral ng music. Or even the musicians that are playing it, right? Especially if it is classical, right? So, ganun din yung sa Soksai. Like, for example, you claim to know people's perceptions of things even though you're not 100% sure of what you're saying, no? So, kasi, alam mo to, kasi Polsai ka, yung opinions kasi sa political science, hindi siya basta-basta
opinion.
Pwede mong sabihin. Right?
Hindi nga rin po dapat hindi nga rin yun dapat basta-bastang kine-claim na opinion eh. Like I've said many times. That's your view, not your opinion.
Kasi ang opinion is still near to the objectivity of the situation. Like for example, katulad ng mga kaliwa, 'di ba? Sasabihin nila kasalanan ng Amerika or ng ating pagiging imperialismo ang kasalanan lagi ng Amerika yung ganyan ganito. So nagiging irrational siya. Okay? It's not once because now you're trying to say that an entire country has economic power over you even though that's not really true as it is. Diba? Maybe there are factors wherein you can tie up the two together, but not to the point that you're saying that we are being enslaved. Yun yung pinupunto natin na minsan nahaluan kasi ng extremist language even though they might have
Oo.
good intent in what they're trying to say. So, yun yung
Hindi,
problem.
nasisira ng irrational na extremist talking points eh.
Now, is there something wrong
Like,
with being an extremist? Like, you have to separate kasi yung disciplinary exchanges from the personal norms that we should empower to each other, no? So is being an extremist fundamentally wrong? No. Is it
no, hindi.
wrong to the extent of you are already assuming that it is true? Then doon magkakaroon ng problema. Kasi these people would need to accept the fact that hindi lahat ng tao pare-parehas nga ng worldview. Okay? So, nangyayari tuloy, since lahat sila magkakalaban in terms of interest and agenda, they have to claim those big circle of rights and pagpapatsi-patsi nila yun. Kung ano yung nakuha nila, no? Yun yung ilalaban nila to get into the platform of discussions. And that is why nagkakaroon ng problem. Kasi parang free speech for me, not for thee. Parang nagiging katulad nga nung double standards na nangyayari sa atin, no? Kahit makakaliwa ka or makakanan ka or any other in between, 'di ba? So, 'di ba? So yun yung doon nagkakaroon ng problema eh. Because now they're trying to tie both things together, okay, by being objectively constructive and by being parang tinatayap nila yon, yung pagiging objectively constructive and pagiging able to talk to other people or to even describe to parang may expectation silang hinahanap, which would not happen, right? And they're also tying it up with the general things upon policy making. So, ang nangyayari tuloy, puro interest na lang, puro rights na lang, puro freedom and speech na lang. Diba? Which is are all very important naman. Wala naman akong against dun eh. Ang problema nga lang kasi we're expecting things, okay, to go our way without tawag dito, or finding a formula on how we can say it properly. Because we lost the good art of linguistics because we justify everything we say, okay, with a narrow or even a shallow definition of freedom. Napaka-shallow niyan.
Or oppression.
Oo, di ba? Napaka-shallow. Lahat sila, no? Ayoko maging radical centrist, pero lahat sila kasi may ganong may ganong ugali na yung ang kalayaan kasi, which is a very old saying, ang kalayaan pinagbabayaran yan. Hindi yan basta-basta. Diba? Katulad niyan, yung kalayaan sa pamamahayag, may responsibilidad ka dyan. Diba? Yung kalayaan nating magsalita sa online, no? Especially when we talk about politics and fighting over politics, no? Isa hinahaluan nila ng ng personal ego, personal ganyan, pagmamalaki sa sarili, diba? Without organizing their thoughts first. So, yun yung problema eh, no? Kasi hindi rin enough yung mag-usap-usap lang eh, di ba? I mean, may na tayo diyan, may meron na tayong mga karanasan diyan, no? Syempre mas matagal ako, pero yung sa ating dalawa or sa ating mga nasa circle natin. Ang dami na nating experiences niyan na building bridges pala is actually not enough because may mga
Or
bridges na
parang
mabilis may mga bridges kasing
masunog.
mabilis bumaksak. Hindi masunog
Hmm.
Kasi we're still 'di ba? Minsan hindi 'di ba? Since we're only human, minsan nakakakati talagang mag-reply, nakaka-tempt talaga na bagdagulin, soplahin, ganun. So, nababaksak kasi may expectations nga silang hinahanap. Katulad ng mga nakasama natin dati sa GC, nagpo-post ng ganito, nagpo-post ng ganyan. Wala man lang formal na ano sa tingin nyo yan. Or for me, for me, ganito. No? Ang akala kasi nila, pagka...
Hindi, parang nahihiya sila magtanong dun eh.
They don't need to. I mean, honestly, if they're so vanguards of free speech, they should be fearless in asking other people's opinion. No? Although, of course, kailangan talaga, pag nagtanong ka, handa kang tumanggap na hindi nga lahat ng sagot ay papabor sa'yo. Katulad nun, may nasakyan ako na taxi Grab on the way to UP. This was last year. So I was not agreeing to him politically because I was trying to find the opportune way to find a common ground. Although, of course, that rarely happened in the conversation. But at least I know that I am not expecting that driver to be like me. Because iba yung pagkakaunawa natin sa politika sa kanila. Ngayon, ang problema, may mga taong ganon, pero egotistical. They think they know a lot of things already.
Yeah.
No? Minsan, kahit naman sabihing eksperyensado ka sa field, it's just, you're just a grain of sand. Diba? Tulad niyan, he is portraying himself to be part of an institution that is very commendable. But yet, he cannot show it by picking on
properly. Hindi niya ma-explain na maayos.
Diba? Ganon din sa mga kabataan, no? I'm being fair. May mga kabataan na you think they know a lot. Wala namang mga experience yan. Nabasa lang sa libro, nakita lang sa YouTube. Diba? Kids today should also learn how to, have this willingness to learn more. Not stop with what they are believing. Kasi malawak ang mundo. Diba? Yun yung problema sa progressives on the other end of the spectrum. No?
Yep.
So,
na parang bang, hindi na nga, sabi ko nga dati, di ba? Sabi ko nga po nung isang araw na, this is not about political points anymore between, yung, lalo na nga yung ngayon, sa Israel and Palestine. This is about the lives of of both Palestinians and Israelis na sinira ng Hamas and ng right-wing Israeli governments. Like, why the fuck can't you get that? Like, hindi lang mga Palestinians ang ano dito, ang affected.
Pati Israel. And ito nga, yun nga yung problema nga dyan. So, syempre, since ideologically bound sila na maniwala sa foreign policy structures nila, the right would be solidly pro-Israel while the left would be solidly pro-Palestine without taking into details everything, which people in the middle typically do. Although now, pagka kasi nag-brand ka ng sarili mo na centrist, they would not believe you and they would not be, hindi sila believe sa'yo. So, kaya nga hindi ako nag-advocate na maging centrist.
Tatarantaduhin ka din sa both sidism mo.
Tatarantaduhin din ako. Although sila rin naman. Mas tanga naman maging partisan kaysa ganun. I mean, honestly, if being a centrist is bad, then ang pagiging extremist or partisan is worse. Because you would be torn with your principles. Like the left, like the right. Or anything in between. Either you're libertarian.
Well, nasa sa kanila din naman yan. Kung ayaw nila mag-balance, di wag. Hindi naman kayo pipilitan. Basta, my point stands that if you wanna be anti-oppressionist, be consistent.
You cannot, Masyado
You
kasi
cannot cherry pick this.
yeah, you have to tread carefully as well.
And then
Because
shield kayo to the accusations that Ukraine is Nazi. Oh my goodness. Paano pa yung modern day Russia ngayon, you idiots?
hindi
Yan
kasi
tayo.
hindi nila maintindihan na parehas na naman authoritarian ng communism tsaka fascism. I mean, that's traditional political science. They're both authoritarian. Magkaiba lang ng economic perceptions. But the way they suppress things are really the same. Ganun din sa libertarian. May libertarian right, may libertarian left. So pareha silang lax freedom to the point of destruction naman. No? Nawala ng order. Doon naman sa kabila, gusto order na papatayin ka na lang kahit kailan nila gusto, di ba? Hindi nila maunawaan yun. Hindi ko alam ba sa mga tao ngayon. But I'm not going to generalize. Maybe we're just being negative.
Yeah, ako din.
Baka naman hindi yan talaga yung
siguro I can be both negative and then concerned to their ano yan? Yung word, nalimutan ko yung shit, I forgot yung word. Yung sentiment, yeah, the sentiment. Yun yung sentiment nila. It baffles me. It baffles me so much.
Totoo yun.
But like I said, magagawa. Ganyan na kayo.
Hindi naman sa walang magagawa. Parang nakakasawa lang talaga. Emotionally, physically. Mentally, nakakasawa siya. Kaya minsan, ano na rin ako. Para bang namamanhid na lang din ako kasi
mas gusto ko na nga lang tawanan kaysa magalit.
Yeah, di ba nga minsan meron tayong episode na puro music lang. Kasi nakakasawa, we would go to this rabbit hole and then we would just anger ourselves. I mean, we're all human. We should not always be like that. I mean,
siguro mas maganda tawanan ko na lang din kada discussion.
Matatalo lang ikaw pagka nagagalit ka parati. I mean, wala naman akong ano. I'm not blaming you for it or anybody, pero yun nga. It's just bad for your health din naman. So, lalong-lalo na. So, yung pagiging reactionary ko kasi, syempre, as an adult man, you would know when a person is already beyond the pale. Diba? So, hindi mo rin mapigilang magkaganon. Diba? Because I regretted what happened. To be quite honest with you, I didn't like it. Mas matapang na nga ako ngayon sa GC na to kaysa doon sa nakaraan. Because I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be, the best that I could in understanding others as well. Yun nga lang talaga, when I show my authentic self, diba, when I objectively say my points, wala. They're just gonna say, pseudo-intellectual. How come? I mean, if I was a pseudo-intellectual, I would not make friends. Diba? I wouldn't allow myself to be part of the GC. Hindi kita naging online friend. Hindi ako nakipag-usap kung sa kanino. Right? Fine. But sometimes pala, you just need to, control yourself. You don't need to meet a lot of people as well. You have to keep your circle small. Not only in this...
Kaya nga ngayon, I detach myself from those other circles that I've entered, lalo na nga dun sa dating friends ko. So, yeah, I stick to this circle for now, or now, to my own circle. But, so yeah, I regret that na I met those guys, but well, to be fair naman, ng kaunti sa kanila. If it wasn't for them, I would not be doing this. Kasi, to be fair lang kasi sir, pero I don't, but I don't really, fully thank them for,
yeah.
Tsaka, hindi naman lumaki itong ano ko eh.
Yeah, I know.
Hindi naman ako katulad nila lumaki yung ano eh.
Hindi, tsaka ang better term for that, nagkaroon ng purpose bakit mo sila nakilala. Because you're now here in this platform, di ba? So, yun na lang. Pero yung to the point that you owe them something, ibang usapan yun. You don't owe them anything.
Oo.
No way. Kumbaga, they may have influenced you, but you do you. You've been there because you did. You do you. No, you did what you needed to do para at least nakakapag-ganito ka. Ganun yun, di ba? Tapos sasabihin na pagka nagaganito tayo, yung mga libert, mga ano sasabihin, ang drama-drama daw. Oh, yan. Akala kasi ng mga libert, mga emotionless sa mga tao and only driven by their needs. Di ba?
Siya nga, naging emotional ng kaunti.
Di ba? Libert. Di ba? Ay, kaya, sige, tingnan natin. Let's use it. Let's,
Amoy ko yung, naamoy ko agad din yung nervousness and I slapped myself in the head. I was like, I thought to myself na, oh my gosh, kabado ka din pala hindi lang ako
Yeah. Actually, nung time na yon, I was just controlling myself. We needed to at least push back a little, di ba? Kasi nga, ang akala niya, lahat ng tao, basta na lang mabait na magsasabi na kung ganun-ganun. Eh, wala eh. Paano kung ganun, na pseudo-intellectual din yung kausap mo? Would you be, para kang tupang mabait? Hindi sa lahat ng panahon ganun. I mean, I'm just being realistic, right? Many people would say that's aggressive, but that's not true. No? Mas okay na yung magbagdagol ka for the truth kaysa yung magbait-baitan ka. Tapos hindi ka rin naman talaga mabait. I mean, that's the reality of life. Because that's authenticity. Hindi katulad ng mga ibang pinklawan. No? Hindi naman talaga mabait. Kunwari lang. O kaya yung mga...
Hindi naman talaga mabait. Napaka-condescending nga eh.
Isko Moreno, di ba? Mga ganun din, halos. Yun nga lang sa tropa ni, yung sa Ping Lacson side lang yata talaga medyo limit yung mga ganun. Pero sa ibang candidates,
Isa lang naman yung attack dog namin. De, joke lang. Madami kaming attack dog, I swear.
Pero hindi...
first witness.
Low profile lang sila. Hindi nga kilala eh.
Sa Twitter lang, mostly.
O, diba?
Pero yung isa naman, both FB and Twitter pa.
Si ano?
Walang iya ka. Yeah. Walang iya ka talaga, sir.
Hindi naman niya... Actually, may pagka-ano rin yun, yung isa doon, may pagka-easy fit. Parang nag-screenshot siya ng yung mga mga text, parang mga updates related sa ng government. Tapos minura-mura niya. Akala naman niya magre-reply yun. Ulo. Masama naman din yun. Yun naman, kabaliktaran ng yung hindi ka lumalaban. Sobrang bagdagol mo na nagiging bobo ka na. Sorry for the term. Pero nakakabobo yun, ha? Pero mo, magre-reply ka. Naka-automate yung number na yun. Tapos tag pa siya ng tag sa mga agency. Tag siya ng tag sa mga agency ng gobyerno. Bakit hindi mo tawagan? Sira din. Wala rin. You just did yourself a righteous indignation but you haven't actually solved an issue. Yun yung napapansin ko sa panahon ngayon, parang lahat ng tao, nagbabardagol, wala naman nangyayari. Diba? O lahat ng partisans, ganun, diba? O, let's admit. Yan kasi, tapos both sides pala, sige. Both sides are what? Stupid? Correct? Anyway.
Pero kasama ka din doon.
Sino? Ako?
Hindi ikaw, sir. Hindi ikaw. I mean,
si Albert Lim?
No, hindi lang siya. Like, No, I mean partisan charlatans in general. Yun na
Yes.
lang. Hindi na
Yeah.
ako mag-name names. Like
Yeah,
lahat
yeah, yeah.
lahat naman tayong mga partisan.
Mm. Lahat naman, pati
Tapos
naman
magagalit
centrist
kayo.
partisan. Kasi may mga centrist kasi na so gravitated towards centrists that are not good, no? Well, I'm trying to be consistent as much as I could, no? Na may mga centrist din naman na in love sa mga taong hindi dapat just for the sake of he's going to unite or this and that. So ba idealistic din eh. Tapos meron din naman mga nihilist na lahat kaaway nila.
Populist na yun eh.
Oo.
sabi ko na eh, yung mga centrist din talaga yung mga magagaling din maging populist eh.
Mm. Meron ba? Parang medyo hindi rin kasi lahat.
Yeah.
Like, institutionalist ang center. Hindi sila populist kasi they fear that yung mga pro-people magiging anarchist. Kasi ang populist palid na sa anarchy if you're believing a person to the point that he doesn't lie. Tulad niyan, yung mga Trump supporters. So,
Oo.
hindi man lang nila questionin. Sir, ano po bang gagawin natin sa sa hindi naman po tama siguro yan. Walang ganon. Baka ngayon, dahil nga sa medyo nahuhumaling tayo sa libertarian concepts, macro-libertarian concepts. Ayun, yan na. Buhay mo, buhay ko. Sige. Mamamatay na lang tayong lahat. Ganun. Sorry pero di ba? Yun yung gusto nila.
Naman, the hypocrisy of the cultural social libertarian aspects.
Parang mas nakatakot nga sila sa right and left eh. Because if you will notice, masisingit nila lahat ng concept nila in everything eh. Hindi katulad sa right and left na limitado na, nagkakaroon na ng safe spaces. And that would eventually make it obviously fallible. Pero ito, hindi sila obvious na fallible. Kasi they're speaking of magic words like freedom, liberty, ganyan. Which is more concerning. Because now, anybody can have the power to brainwash people and utusan na lang nila, patayin nyo yung taong yan, wala na yung kwenta. Which is also what they're trying to say na oppress ng institutions. Mas malala ang mangyayari kung wala. Pag wala na tayong kinatatakutan, wala na tayong wala na tayong system. Mas malala yun kasi nobody would tell you what's wrong. Right? You can just decide for yourself who to kill.
This is the consequence of too much isolationism.
Kala ba nila? Alam naman natin yung barometers of the extremes, pero sila kasi nagiging parang they're making this thing hip and edgy even though it's not. It's far from what we know, no? Anyway, I have to go. I guess that's my piece. Sige. Bye-bye.
Sige. Alright, sir. Sige, bye-bye. So anyway, since natapos na tapos naman na si Sir Kurt dun sa about to that last topic, I wanna share you guys this new vid ni Lucas Kunz, one of the non-incumbent Senate candidates that I'm supporting on the Democratic side this year. And we will have a sneak peek. Not really sneak peek, but here's another ad. It's longer in a bit than his first campaign ad for the U.S. Senate this election cycle. So let's go.
When Josh Hawley became our U.S. Senator, He took an oath to do his duty and defend our democracy. Then, right here, 3 years ago, he showed us who he really is. You remember. When he thought I was going to get him some power, he's out there pumping his fist and inciting a crowd. The second got real, he skittered out the back door. Got real, he skittered out the back door. But that was hardly the first time that Josh Hawley has put himself first while he runs out on his duty. With our freedoms under attack, Josh has turned his U.S. Senate office into a family business, focused on banning abortion without exception.
Yep.
And when Missourians were getting
Helping
gutted
his
by
wife.
outsourcing and corporate consolidation, Josh helped Wall Street cut overtime pay for hundreds of thousands of Missouri workers. When giant corporations were destroying our farmland and poisoning our communities, Josh took their PAC checks and then scrapped the AG division that held them accountable. When
Oh my
veterans
God.
like me and military families were counting on Josh for support, he turned his back on us and played politics with our health care and even national security. But Missourians are taking notice. We don't like what we see.
Well, yeah, Missourians are taking notice, but I hope most, okay, all, if not most Missourians take notice.
We deserve a U.S. Senator we can trust to work for us, not for himself. My name is Lucas Kuntz, and I'm running for U.S. Senate. I didn't learn about what's important in life at a corporate law firm. I learned about honor, courage, and commitment in the United States Marine Corps.
But you're
Serving
still
the
a
community
JAG
that took care of
officer
my
in the
family growing
United
up.
States Marine Corps.
Josh Hawley and I have both taken an oath. But unlike Josh, I haven't broken mine. In the last year, we've built a worker-led, people-powered coalition to take this Senate seat back for Missouri's working families. And now, we've got them running scared again. In the Marines, running out on our duty would get us thrown in the brig or court-martialed. But for Josh, this race, this election, this is our only chance to hold him accountable. So keep on running, Josh, because we're coming for you.
All right. That's it. That's it for this Friday's episode. And I'm so happy na nakapag-episode ako. So, yeah, I'm glad na I got to record this episode again with Circuit and the new guest of the show na si Ethan Vargas. So, I thank both gentlemen for that. And that is all for, yeah, like I said, this is all for your Friday's night edition of my podcast commentary and reaction. So until again, next time. And again, next time. To you, ladies and gents. So this is me, EJ, signing out for now. Goodbye.